Greetings, humans. You have entered the Command Zone, your destination for all aspects of Elder Dragon Highlander. Enjoy your stay.
Hey guys, welcome back to a brand new episode of the Command Zone featuring your hosts, Jimmy Wong, myself.
Yo, I'm Josh Lee Kwai.
And today we're going to be talking about the one and only awesome set, Conspiracy, because it is the
awesome.
one and only.
So awesome. Seriously, if you haven't tried it, we've been having so much fun with it.
Yeah, so if you guys don't know, Conspiracy is a new set by Wizards of the Coast for Magic the Gathering, of course. That was released really recently, and it is essentially a multiplayer drafting format.
Right. So it's really aimed towards EDH players, and it's a little more casual than your traditional draft. Mm-hmm. It's EDH players are really going to feel at home because, instead of one-on-one, you're playing with pods of maybe 4 or 5 people or maybe 3, but you still draft the cards. If you don't know what drafting is, you want to explain it, Jimmy?
Yeah, so drafting is a format where basically a bunch of people sit around the table. Everyone gets a certain number of booster packs, usually 3. Everyone simultaneously opens ones, looks through their pack, chooses the one card out of it that they would like, and passes it to the left for the first round. For the second booster, he passes to the right, and for the third, he passes to the left again. And essentially, you're trying to make a 40-card deck out of the cards that you're drafting.
Right, exactly. So you're basically taking one card from the pack, then somebody will pass you another pack. You take one card from that one, then you pass it, and you continue. And so you're getting, each pick is going to be a little bit worse because somebody's already taken a few cards out of it. But yeah, it sounds daunting. It sounds a little bit scary if you haven't done it before. Trust me, it's very simple.
And it's a ton of fun, too, because
fun.
It's a whole different format of Magic where cards like commons can all of a sudden be the most powerful card in your deck.
Exactly.
If you draft it correctly.
I mean, let's be honest. In EDH, we play maybe 1% of all the cards in Magic because, you're only looking for the most powerful stuff. And so there's all these cards that have been created that, you just can't use.
Yeah.
Which is a little bit sad. But in a format where, you're basically you're sort of scratching the bottom for the last couple playables in your deck, then you get to use a bunch of cards that you would never ever use, and you get some interactions that you can sort of make up on the fly.
Right.
It's super fun. Also, I think what drafting does that's really fun is every play group has the guy who's willing to spend more money on his cards than everybody else, and another guy who's he's just starting out and he doesn't own a lot of cards, and drafting really brings the balance of who's got what cards. It takes that all out. Everybody is clean slate. Everybody has 3 booster packs worth of stuff.
Yeah.
So when you start the game, you've got just as good of cards as everybody else.
Yeah. And there's a little bit of variance, of course. You may get 3 mythics and 3 packs, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're all going to be in the colors you want to play. So it's a lot of fun. It involves a lot of strategy. I'd say it's the closest to a board game that Magic gets.
Don't get scared, though, if you haven't drafted. Just go do it. Try it. Don't worry too much about what we call signals and the other things. Just take a good card in the pack, take a good card in the next pack. Before you know it, you'll sort of be in a couple of colors, and then it's pretty easy. Your first couple of drafts, you don't have to get real fancy. Just I've got good red and green cards. I'm just going to take red and green cards from here on out, and you'll have fun. You'll have a good drafting experience. This format is really tailored toward EDH players because I think, people who draft all the time, there's a different kind of deck that you have to draft for 1v1 than you do for multiplayer. And EDH players are a lot better at evaluating this set and how the cards are going to work in big pods like that.
Yeah, definitely. And it also brings for EDH players, Conspiracy is a nice thing because you're not really opening packs anymore when you're playing EDH. You're going online, you're searching for singles and stuff. So like Josh once said, the best part about drafting is that you get all the parts of Magic. You get to open the booster pack, you get to create a deck, and then you get to play Magic the Gathering. So Conspiracy does all that, but in a multiplayer format with a bunch of different cards that, I'll say this much, no single game has ever been the same. I've seen similar archetypes come up and similar decks sort of pop up, but it's always been won by something different, which is awesome.
Definitely true. We've drafted this set quite a bit. Seriously, we can't stress enough. It's super fun. If you haven't tried it with your play group, your EDH play group, you'll love it. Give it a shot. Yeah. Let's talk really quick about a couple things to keep in mind while you're drafting that are different than Commander. Just, it's not exactly like the Commander. It's just close. It's like a halfway point between a regular draft and an EDH game. The first thing is you don't have 40 life. You only start with 20 life. So
makes a big difference.
It does make a big difference. The games are still going to be longer because there's more players, but they're not going to be as long as an EDH game, although you don't have crazy synergies and infinite combos.
Yeah,
so
the power level is definitely lower as well.
Yeah, so maybe the games are similar length, but just keep it in mind, like you can't just be taking cards that just do 4 damage to yourself because like you could in EDH, because that's not 10% of your life, it's 20% of your life. A big difference.
There is no commander damage because there are no commanders.
That is right. So life gain's a little bit stronger.
Yep.
Again, pure life gain still pretty much sucks. What did you say, Jimmy, about it last time? You're putting yourself farther from death, but you're not putting your opponent closer to it.
Yeah,
I really like that.
Yeah.
But incidental life gain can be strong,
Yeah.
Or at least stronger than it would be in EDH.
Yeah, and of course there's no commander in your command zone, but there are cards in the quote-unquote command zone.
Yeah, that's true. It's actually, Conspiracy is named after a new card type.
Called the Conspiracy.
Which are very fun. So we'll get into those as we go through the full set review. But yes, there's no commander card that you always have access to. So it's you're going to have to build the synergies into your deck. There'll be a little more variance because of that, but that's okay. Everyone's playing from that same spot. So one more thing to keep in mind while you draft is how many players are going to be in my pod. And by pod, I mean you can draft with up to 8 people, but you're not going to play with 8 people in one game. It would just be too unwieldy. So if you did that, you would usually split up into 2 groups of 4. If you're drafting with 5 people total, then you probably form one big group of 5. If you're drafting with 6, it might be 2 threes. It might
2
be
threes, yeah.
Yeah, that's probably the way to go. If you're only drafting with 3 people total, there'd be 3. Some of the cards really are different power level based on if there's 3, 4, or 5 people in your pod.
Yeah, and that's definitely what makes Conspiracy very unique, is that is often going to be the case, and every game is decided. Really, it comes down to certain cards being more powerful in situations and certain cards not being more powerful. So if you know you're going to be in 1-1, then you would make a completely different deck. But this is a multiplayer format, so that's going to affect a lot of our grades. Speaking of which, that is what we're doing today. We're doing a full set review of Conspiracy.
Now, we're going to pattern this set review after probably it's my favorite Magic podcast. I think it's yours too.
I think it's the only one I really listen to.
Yeah, it's called Limited Resources. So big shout out to Marshall and Brian. We're big fans. They are actually specialists in the draft and limited format, and they talk a lot about the different sets and how you draft them. And Jimmy and I we're EDH specialists, but we have done quite a few drafts. And the Limited Resources guys
haven't talked about Conspiracy enough for my liking. Or at least they haven't done the full set review, and I wanted them to, so I'm glad that we have the chance to do it ourselves.
Yeah, I think, those guys, they're really smart. They're really spiky. They're nuts and bolts. They get into all the intricacies of a normal draft one-on-one stuff, but I don't think they have quite the expertise for the multiplayer stuff. And I think, they did one episode and it was pretty vague. So we're going to sort of quote unquote steal their format for how to do a set review.
So thank you guys for setting the standard for how to do a really good set review. And I would say I've learned more from the Limited Resources podcast than just talking to friends about Magic. I could have spoken for the same number of hours to people at Magic the Gathering, but I've learned more from that podcast than anything else. So definitely big shout out to those guys. Make sure you check out their podcast.
I mean, is it sad to say that there's a few episodes I've listened to more than once?
Oh, no, definitely not.
Yeah, those guys are smart. If you haven't checked out the Limited Resources podcast, go check them out.
Yeah.
Hopefully we've shouted them out enough now that they won't be mad that we stole their format for one episode.
Right. Well, we're stealing the, just the regular grading format.
Correct.
Through F.
Yeah, so here's how we're going to grade the cards. We'll grade them on it's like a elementary school grading scale. Mm-hmm. So an F would be like a card that I would never play. A D will be a card that I really don't want to play. Maybe I rarely will, but man, if it
comes down to it, you have to play it.
But I won't be happy about it if I have to. C is like you'll have more C's in your deck than almost anything else. That's
Correct.
A card that you'll probably play. They're fine. It's just not exciting, but it sort of makes up the meat of your deck.
Yep.
A B is a card that I will always play. In fact, the B can be your first pick. Like they're strong enough to be the first pick out of a pack.
Correct.
And a B is often a good reason to go into a color. So to choose your second color or your first color, I guess.
Yeah, or even 2 colors if it's has 2 colors in it.
Correct. And then A would be
bombs, the best cards.
Yeah, awesome stuff. Stuff that has a good chance to win you the game.
Yeah, and also has a good chance to make it into my EDH deck.
True. Some of those A's there's not very many of them, but they're pretty awesome.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so really quickly, we're gonna start. If you're on the Wizards website under the image gallery, we're gonna follow that pretty closely. But the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna start with. There are some special cards in this set. I'm gonna call them Draft Matters cards. They're cards that affect the actual drafting portion of the draft. Right. So, and
this has never happened before.
Yeah, these are brand new. They're really fun. Again, if you haven't drafted before, don't be intimidated by this stuff. You know, A, you don't have to take them, and B, you can often just grab them and be like, okay, what's this do? And ask around the table. Somebody will know.
Yeah, someone will know.
You know,
and a lot of that will happen. That's also why I like Conspiracy.
We still do that.
Yeah, usually drafting is a very secretive thing, and you're hiding your cards. But in Conspiracy, there's so many new fun cards that asking around is definitely going to have a bunch.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so we're going to start with the Aether Searcher.
Nice.
It's a 7-mana 6/4, but its text says, reveal Aether Searcher as you draft it. Reveal the next card you draft and note its name. So this means you pick it out of a pack and you reveal it. So you put it face up and you say, I just drafted the Aether Searcher. And then when you get past your next pack, you pick a card out of it and you write its name down and put that under the Aether Searcher.
Right.
And then what the Aether Searcher says is when Aether Searcher enters the battlefield, this is when you're playing, you may search your hand and or library for a card with name noted as you drafted cards named Aether Searcher. You may cast it without paying its mana cost. If you search your library this way, shuffle it. So what this means is you play the Aether Searcher during the game, and then you get to automatically go get that card that you drafted after it and put it right into play.
Yep. So you definitely, and it's not searching for anything.
Correct.
So Aether Searcher it's a fun card, but it's a little limited because if you get it, that means the next card you pick needs to really work with it synergistically, or you need to just toss the Aether Searcher out the window and not choose anything if you can't find something good that fits it.
Yeah, I think the Aether Searcher is a card that you really want to get early in the pack.
Oh yeah, first pick if possible, if you want to gamble on it.
Yeah, first pick is it depends on what else is in the pack, but first pick is a place you'd want it because then you get a good chance in the next pack because it's only going to have one card missing to get a good card.
Yeah.
You know, and I also think like this is a card that can allow you to like pick basically any card because it doesn't matter what the colors of that card are because you get to play it without paying its mana cost. You can get like some huge green creature and you can get it out for free. Although Aether Searchers cost 7 mana.
That's true. You're not going to be able to play it till the 7th turn, and
by then you could cast anything you wanted anyway.
You could play that Palaka Worm.
Yeah,
you know?
I mean it's a 7 mana 6/4. It's not completely embarrassing as a creature, but it's I don't know. It's risky. Also, like, what if you draw that card before you draw the Aether Searcher?
That's right.
If it's not in your colors, like you can't even play it, and you're just waiting to get the Aether Searcher.
Yeah.
I like that the Searcher says if it's in your hand, it still works. It's not like it only has to be in your library.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you think about this card, Jimmy?
I think it's fun. I think there's some cards in Conspiracy that this works spectacularly well with, especially if you combine it with Conspiracies and all that. There are ways to, put a bunch of cards into play with the Aether Searcher. But for the most part, it's highly conditional. And the more conditional something is, the riskier it gets. So I don't think it's a super strong card. So I would give it like a solid C.
Yeah, I give it a C also.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it just depends, it could be an A in the right deck. If this is the third pack, right, and you've already got a good handle on what your deck is, and then the Aether Searcher pops up and you're like, okay, all right, I'll do this, and you gamble on the next pack, you might find the one card that makes all your dreams come true. So you never know. But it's exciting. It's a fun new thing that has never happened before. And if you guys are playing Conspiracy, I recommend having a little Post-it note around.
Yeah, Post-it notes
pens.
with some pens is sort of a must. Okay, you want to read the next one?
Yeah, all right. Next up, we got the Agent of Acquisitions. It's an artifact creature that costs 2. Draft Agent of Acquisitions face up. Same with Aether Searcher. Instead of drafting a card from a booster pack, you may draft each card in that booster pack one at a time. If you do, turn Agent of Acquisitions face down, and you can't draft cards for the rest of this draft rounds. But you may look at booster packs passed to you. Interesting.
Very
It's a 2/1 as well.
Yeah, it's a 2/1 creature also. Yeah, we've all been in a draft and some dude is sitting there going, man, can I just draft this whole pack? I wish I could draft this whole pack. Come on, let me just draft this whole pack. And now if you get this guy, you can do it. I don't know if it's good or not. Like, how many cards would have to be usable for your deck in the pack for it to be good?
I find that if I'm able to get 6 or 7 cards out of a full round of drafting, then it's worth it.
That's a lot, though.
That's a lot of
even
cards.
To have 7 cards in your colors in one pack is tough.
Yeah, it's actually just statistically not very likely.
Yeah.
But at the same time, the Agent of Acquisitions also lets you money draft if there is a really sweet card in there that you want.
True, but I mean, you're going to get all the dredges from that pack too.
Exactly. Yeah. The thing is with Conspiracy, there are a lot of really sweet uncommons. I'd say again, this is a really great thing to get in an early pack because this does let your numbers. You get to choose what you want from here. If you draft all the cards, you're like, okay, great. I have great choices in blue, white, and red, and I'm just going to see what comes to me. At the same time, I can see a lot of people being groaning, as they see the other booster packs passed to them that they can't draft from. I would almost not want to see them because it would make me regret.
Maybe, well, you don't have to. It just says you may.
Yeah.
So it's not a must.
Yeah, definitely not.
You don't have to look at them. Yeah, I could see like grabbing this sort of late in the pack as just like a maybe. Just like that way I have the option if it comes along. But in general, I just don't think it's that good. And a 2-mana 2/1 as we know in a multiplayer format, like it's just not going to do enough for you.
Yeah.
So the creature itself probably won't even make your deck.
Yeah. There are some cards with it that Limited Resources actually talked about that if you use him to draft it, you can, make some bonker cards.
Yeah, the Lurking Automaton.
Yeah, but we'll talk about that in a bit. But again, it's super conditional. I could see this being useful in a few situations. It's a lot of fun, and if you are able to pull it off, then awesome.
So what do you give it?
I'd give this one a D.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it a D+. Because I think it could be fun, and if you get it late, in pack 1, then you might as well grab it. But if it's late in pack 3, it's worthless. So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, D+. Okay, next we're gonna do the Canal Dredger.
Ah, nice. It's a rare.
It is a rare. It's a 4-mana 1/5, which is not exciting.
No one's excited about 1/5.
Draft Canal Dredger face up. That seems to be a theme. Each player passes the last card from each booster pack to a player who drafted a card named Canal Dredger. And then the Canal Dredger, when it's in play, has an ability which is tap it and put target card from your graveyard on the bottom of your library. Okay, so let's talk about the draft thing first. Getting the last card in each pack. These are usually pretty bad cards.
They're going to be the worst cards.
Yeah.
Usually.
You may get, if you got this in pack 1, that's going to be an additional, let's say you're drafting with 8 people. That's an additional 24 cards.
Mm-hmm. Right, because you're getting one from each pack.
You're probably going to get 2 or 3 playables out of that just by the odds. But if you're drafting with 4 people, that's only going to be 12 cards. That's if you pick it up in pack 1, by the way.
Yeah. If you pick pack 3, you get 4 cards.
Yeah. It's, I don't know. That aspect of it, I think maybe you're going to get a couple playables. Maybe. Yeah.
I'll say this, in the drafts, I've seen Canal Dredger pop up maybe twice, and I did grab it once because it was the last rare, I think, in the pack, and there was like 2 cards left. So I took it, and I got nothing good.
I took it, I got it, I think, in second pack, and I got like 2 playables. Okay. Which is okay.
Yeah, 2 for 1, right?
They weren't great cards, though. They were.
Did you actually end up playing them?
Yeah, there was. No, I mean, I got 8 cards, or I think we were drafting with 5 people. I got 10 cards total, and I think 2 cards in there. But they weren't the best cards in my deck. They were just like, oh, I can use that. So
right.
It was fine. I think if I didn't have it, my deck would have been like 1% less powerful. It's not. I don't know.
And for a 4-mana 1/5, if it had better stats, I could see it actually having a purpose outside of the drafting part of it. And if you have a card like Grenzo, which we'll talk about later, then Canal Dredger is something that is effective for that. Yeah,
Grenzo cares about what cards are on the bottom of your library. We'll talk about them later, but if you already have Grenzo, Canal Dredger is actually pretty good.
Yeah. But again, it's a draft format. You don't even want to be setting up cards that have 3 card combos or are reliant on certain things. Like Canal Dredger could pop out and there's nothing in your graveyard to put in the bottom of your library. Specifically a creature too,
The only other thing I would say is, if you know your play group really well and people are pretty non-aggressive and the game might go really, really long, then Canal Dredger can actually stop you from decking yourself.
Correct. Yeah.
So that could be worth something sometimes. I don't know. In the end, all this adds up and it's still not that great. I'm gonna give it a C-.
Yeah, I'll give it a C- too. Just because there are certain points where it's interesting because it's a C- because I won't necessarily play it, but I would draft it to see what would happen.
Just to see what cards you're going to get. If you get 2 other cards that are C-.
Yeah, so maybe it's a C in that case. as in there's a whole new area of cards you would draft but not play, which seems bonkers, but yeah.
Okay, the next one is Cogwork Grinder. You wanna read that one?
Nice. All right, so it's a 6-mana artifact creature for a 0/0.
Ew.
Oh, but it's gonna get some counters. Don't worry. Draft Cogwork Grinder face up. As you draft a card, you may remove it from the draft face down. Those cards aren't in your card pool. All right, Cogwork Grinder enters the battlefield with X +1/+1 counters on it, where X is the number of cards you remove from the draft with cards named Cogwork Grinder.
So basically, as you get near the end of each pack, you take cards and you draft them, and then you set them to the side, and you can't actually put those in your deck. And in exchange for that, you put a
1/1 counter,
a number on Cogwork Grinder. Yeah. So if you did that throughout the draft to 7 cards, then when you play him, he's a 7/7.
Nice.
I actually drafted this card one time, and I was surprised with how good it was. It's not awesome, but I think I was able to make it an 8/8, and I think I got it in pack 2.
Nice.
It's just like, near the end, you're just like, I'm not going to use this. 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 So it can actually be pretty strong. I think it combos well with that Agent of Acquisitions, where you can take the whole pack.
Right, and then you can draft a whole bunch of those cards face down.
You're like, I want 4 of these cards, and then the other 8 cards in the pack, I'll just draft him face down for Cogwork Grinder, and all of a sudden, he can be like a 17/17 when he comes in.
Yeah, that would be absolutely bonkers. He is a 0/0 at the end of the day, so things that remove counters can obviously, of course, wreck his life.
True, there's not a lot of that. There is one or
Black
two,
does, carry that around. It's fun. I can see him being a lot of fun. The other thing you could do with him is hate draft with him a little bit, saying like, hey, oh my goodness, this card cannot go to anyone.
Yeah.
And I want other cards in this pack, but I know this person next to me is white, and this is a Swords to Plowshares. I need to draft this face down.
Yeah, and normally I don't like hate drafting, but at least you get some value from hate drafting.
Yeah, exactly.
I would still say don't ever hate draft anything for any reason above a card you would put in your deck, or that's likely to make your deck. But
if you're super competitive, then go for it. But this is a casual fun format. Don't worry about it too much. You can maybe not hate draft. Maybe it's a dislike draft.
Yeah, dislike draft. Okay, so
I don't want this card played against me.
I would say if I got it in pack 1 or midway through pack 2, I would say that for me it's about a B, maybe B-.
Okay.
But if I get in pack 3, it's more like a C- or a D+, because it's hard for it to be above like a 4/4 in that instance.
All these cards that you have to draft face up and name cards with and stuff, I'd say definitely all lose their value the further you get along in the draft.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'd give it like a solid B-.
B-.
B-, because I'm the kind of player though that sees all the cards, and I'll switch colors halfway through the second pack, and so I don't want to accidentally take a card away from me, unless it's red, because no one ever plays red. It seems.
Yeah, you do have to sort of know what you're doing as far as be pretty sure what colors you're in, etc. for that card. So yeah. Okay, the next card this one's gotten a lot of press.
I love this guy.
Yeah, it's called the Cogwork Librarian. It's 4 mana for a 3/3, so it's fine. In some colors, that's actually pretty good. In green, that's not, but in blue, that's pretty good creature.
Yeah,
it says draft Cogwork Librarian face up. As you draft a card, you may draft an additional card from that booster pack. If you do, put Cogwork Librarian into that booster pack.
Nice.
So basically, this is like equity you're taking from one pack and passing to another pack. So you get a pack and it doesn't have anything great for you.
Yep.
You can take the Cogwork Librarian out of it and then wait for a pack that has 2 cards you want, and then you can basically take 2 cards and put the Cogwork back in.
Yep. Again, a card that's really great the earlier you can grab it, because the best time to get this card is when you're opening up your second and third pack, and you get to look at those packs and say, I want 2 cards out of this. In goes Cogwork Librarian.
Yep.
At the same time, however, Cogwork Librarian does help everyone else around you. But if the earlier that you pick it, the better off you are in general.
Yeah, you just have more options to get good stuff.
Yeah, and the next person that gets it, they have to essentially waste one of their draft picks to take it out in order to get 2 cards from a later pack.
And they're getting it later than you, so they don't have as much versatility. Yeah. I think it's good to take in pack 1, and then, you can even hold it till pack 3, and then it's basically worthless to somebody else. But you're taking a risk.
Yeah, exactly.
I think you take it and, before the middle of pack 2 if you can, and then you use it as soon as you see 2 cards that you want.
Yeah, exactly. It's better not to wait for this, because there is a chance that you won't get it at all. And then
I've been holding it in pack 3, and then a pack never came along that had 2 cards I wanted, and then so at the end of the draft I just sort of had it.
Yeah. So this card is definitely a high grade for when I would draft it, and not when I would play it in a game.
So what do you give it?
I'd give it a B, maybe a B plus. Depending on when you get it. First pack, if it's coming around and it's maybe the 5th, 6th pick out of that pack, and it's still sitting there, I would totally take it. That would be my first pick out of that at that point, you know.
Yeah, I give it a B+ in pack 1, and then I give it a B- in pack 2,
and
then
F in pack 3.
In pack 3,
well, pack
I
3
would
late
give
pick.
it like a C-.
Yeah.
But in pack 1, if it's like your 4th or 5th pick, you know, and you don't have anything else, I definitely would never pick this card over a card in my colors that I consider to be a B or higher. Yeah. But if it's just like a C card, I might take the Cogwork Librarian in pack 1, you know, hoping to get a chance at like 2 better cards later.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
All right, the next guy is Cogwork Spy, which is a 3 costing artifact creature, 2/1 flying.
That already is... Listen, don't be too distracted by the text on these draft matter cards. Don't forget, a 3-mana 2/1 flyer is actually pretty good.
Yeah,
and it's the fact that it's an artifact is strong for colors like green and black and red, which have a hard time dealing with the flyers, and the flyers in the set are kind of bonkers. So this card actually, you know, don't forget 3-mana 2/1 flyer. Okay.
Yeah, it's easy just to read the drafting parts of these cards and forget that they're actually cards that you could legitimately put in your deck.
Correct.
So the Cogwork Spy says, reveal Cogwork Spy as you draft it. You may look at the next card drafted from this booster pack. So essentially, when you draft it, you pass it to the next person. Whatever that person chooses, you get to see what they choose.
Yeah.
I'm not too excited about that.
Yeah, it's okay. I think if it's in pack 1, again, you can sort of see what card they take. That tells you sort of what color they're in. You can maybe avoid that color from... I mean,
but at the same time,
it's a long way to go.
It's not... I mean, you're going to be able to find out if you are able to deduce what's in the pack anyway, what that person is drafting color-wise.
I mean, you won't know definitively, but you're right.
Yeah. I mean, you should be able to garner a general sense of what they're potentially doing. And the other thing with Cogwork Spy is, like, you could pass a pack to someone, and they'll just take the card that they want for their EDH deck.
Yeah, you never know. You never know. They don't have to tell you why they drafted it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, it's tough, but I think a 3-mana 2/1 flyer is basically already like a C in this format, or maybe a C-. So it's all upside, like just being able to look and possibly get some information.
Correct. Yeah, there are 2 nice parts to it.
But I'm actually going to give it a C because I think those 3 colors I mentioned have a hard time with flyers, and they're just looking for any flyers they can get.
Right.
So I'd say C or C-.
Yeah, I'd give it a C- just because I there are other flyers in this set that I like more.
Okay.
For instance, like the 1/2 white flying vigilance.
Yeah, but if you're not in white, I mean, what if you're in black? Like they only have that Liliana Spectres.
They got exactly.
Okay, Cogwork Tracker. It's a 4-mana 4/4. Well, now we're talking. That sounds pretty good.
4 across the board.
Yeah. Reveal Cogwork Tracker as you draft it, and note the player who passed it to you. So, Jimmy, if you pass me this pack, I write Jimmy down on my little Post-it and stick it on this guy.
Or just on the card.
Yeah. And now Cogwork Tracker attacks each turn if able. Cogwork Tracker attacks a player you noted for cards named Cogwork Tracker each turn if able. So this means if Jimmy passes this to me, I have to write his name on it, and then when it's in play, I have to attack him with it every turn. Every single turn. Oh, we know I hate cards like this. I just don't like cards that I don't get to choose how to play them.
Yeah, you have no control over it. What Cogwork Tracker does is it makes the game go faster.
Yeah, it sort of forces action.
It forces action. But at the same time, what if Jimmy has a 5/5 out? And Cogwork Tracker is a waste of 4 mana from Josh's hand, and that's a whole turn spending something that essentially does nothing good for you.
Or what if you spent the first 5 turns of the game like in a little bit of a scuffle with another player?
Yeah.
And then you draw this guy, and you're like, if I play this thing, I'm now going to have to fight Jimmy too.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's like the game's, we've talked about this last episode, the game's so political that if all of a sudden I'm not in control of who I'm attacking and stuff, the politics can get out of control for me.
Literally, the most you could do is say, hey man, I'm sorry, and then play it.
Yeah. But then if I'm that dude, I'm like, don't play it.
Yeah, exactly. Don't even put it in your deck.
You're
Don't
making
even draft
a choice
it.
to play it. You can't really say you're sorry for that. You're putting it onto the table. Yeah, I don't know. To me, this card, I'm going to give it a D-. I just don't like it at all.
I'd give it an F. I just can't see any upside to it, to be honest. I can never see a point where I'd want to play this and have it go to town.
I mean, if you were in a smaller pod with only 3 people,
sure.
then maybe.
Yeah, in a 5-person game and things are already hectic, it's just not good. Especially because there's so much happening out there.
Yeah.
There's so many more hands to keep track of, and you need to have... I would much rather put a response in my deck than Cogwork Tracker. I'd even put a battle trick in there instead of Cogwork Tracker because it's just got more utility than just something... I mean, there is the off chance that you'll do it against someone that doesn't have someone that can block it or you'll just start killing off.
But you never know that when you put it in your deck.
Yep. And I hate relying on something that you can't rely on.
Yeah.
When it's all
That's
up
a
to
good
that
point.
variance. Yeah.
All right, fine. F. I give it an F. You convinced me. Sold, sir.
All right, done.
Okay.
And speaking of sold, Deal Broker is our next card.
It's we're just good with segues.
I know, right? It's a 3-mana 2/3. That's okay. Draft Deal Broker face up. Immediately after the draft, you may reveal a card in your card pool. Each other player may offer you one card in his or her card pool in exchange. You may accept any one offer. And he has a tap ability to draw a card and discard a card, which I think is very powerful.
Yeah, it's what we call a loot effect.
Yeah.
Because you can just sort of like go rifle through your deck a little bit faster. You can get rid of lands. Like later in the game when you don't need lands, like that's basically says draw a card.
Yep.
That's actually way underrated as an ability.
Yeah. And I think for a 3 or for a 2/3, it's vanilla test, not too bad.
Yeah, I think it's fine. Here's what happens sometime in draft. Like you open your first pack, there's a decent card, not something amazing but decent. You pick it. Then the next pack comes, there's a good card in another color, you take that. The third pack comes, there's a good card in a third color, you take that, and all of a sudden that first card you got, which is pretty good but not amazing, you're not in that color anymore.
Yeah. That could even go for the second or third card, depending on how the future packs go. So
exactly.
You're always going to have at least one money card, I'd say, that's a solid card in another color that you're not playing by the end of the draft.
Yeah, and other people have that same issue, so you put that up for auction basically, and they don't have to offer you, but you may get something. I played this one of our drafts, and I ended up getting like a pretty middle of the road card for a card I wasn't going to put in my deck. Like I got like a C level card for one of my other cards that just wasn't going to make the deck. It wasn't in my colors, and I wasn't going to use it. So
yeah,
and I think that I could see that happening fairly often. And the card itself is usable as a looter. So
yeah, and the other thing is it's in a bigger game, 5 players. You're probably going to see all 5 colors represented, which means that when you put out a card like Deal Broker and you find a nice card to give out to the sort of entice the people. And this is great because this is politics too.
Yeah,
this
true.
You could give a really nice card out too. It doesn't even necessarily need to be a card that you just think is okay. It could be something that's kind of a bomb.
Yeah.
And see what people give to you in return. And the other thing is,
that's true because you don't have to accept the offers.
Yeah, you can just say no to everyone and see what they give you.
Yeah,
see what they're
true.
going to pop up.
That's true. So if you're like a good salesman too, this card maybe goes up in value. Like it has a little it has a little equity that's not based on the cards, it's based on your own personality type.
This is one of my favorite cards in Conspiracy because I think it embodies what the format's all about.
It makes it totally fun. Yeah. What do you give it?
I would still give it like a C.
I think I give it a C+.
Yeah, actually, now that I look at the looting ability and I'm applying Brian Wong sort of what the 4 stages of the game and what's effective, I think looting is good almost always unless you're winning.
I think looting is actually stronger in multiplayer than it is on 1-on-1 too, because looting is an effect that gets better as the game goes longer, and multiplayer games just tend to go longer more often.
Yeah.
So the only thing I would say is looting is a little scary in bigger games because you have a chance to deck yourself. So if you have a lot of looting effects, you might even listen, this is going to sound like heresy, but you might even build like a 45 card deck or a slightly larger deck.
To be honest, I played Conspiracy Now with 40 card decks, 45 card decks, and one time with WorldNet I played like an 80 card deck.
Oh, I can't wait to talk about WorldNet much later, but yes. So you're not crazy in this format to play a slightly bigger deck. Listen, 90% of the time play 40 cards.
Yeah.
But 10% of the time there might be enough reasons in your deck to make a slightly bigger deck.
There are a couple of cards that let you play a 45 card deck, and those are the ones that
35 card deck.
Oh, 35. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But I'm saying with the 45 card deck, you could play a card that, for instance, like those wolves that search for itself.
True.
You're gonna anytime you grab one, it's your deck size immediately reduced.
That's true. Okay, so the next card is the Lore Seeker.
Ooh, nice.
It's a 2-mana 2/2.
I gotta mention how much I love the art for this guy.
Yeah, he looks awesome. 2-mana 2/2 in a multiplayer format, not that great. 2 drops in general without utility are not that great.
Who cares about that? Read the
But
text.
he is awesome, yes. Reveal Lore Seeker as you draft it. After you draft Lore Seeker, you may add a booster pack to the draft.
Whammo. That's fantastic.
I've never drafted it, and every time this is the only card that I want to pull.
Me too.
I'm just so excited. I'm like, please it doesn't even have to be me. Just please somebody at the table pull a freaking Lore Seeker.
Because I bought a Modern Masters pack for this draft, and if no one pulls Lore Seeker, I'm just going to have to sadly open it by myself afterwards because I can't let it sit around unopened.
See, that's the thing. It doesn't say add a booster pack of a specific set. You can literally add a booster pack from any set that you have a booster pack for. So when you come to draft Conspiracy, just bring a couple. It doesn't have to be amazing expensive packs, but
from Born of the
but
Gods,
it can be
Theros. Yeah, it can be.
It can be Lorwyn or something if you want, but
it can be unhinged.
Oh, that's true. Oh, that would be crazy.
Yeah.
Okay, so
people have done it. I've heard some crazy stories.
That would be freaking awesome. So here's the thing, though. You add the booster pack, you get the first pick from it, but then you pass it. So the guy you pass it to is like the winner of the lottery. He didn't have to provide the pack, but he gets the second best card from it.
Yeah.
The guy that passed that pack to you, he is hating life because he's getting the last pick from this new shiny, set. So listen, I don't know. It's hard to grade this card. It really is, but it's super fun.
Oh, it's so fun. It's just it opens up a world of possibilities, and I'm sure that someone's gonna find something in some deck or some set that breaks Conspiracy. Well, because there's a card in there that like if combined.
Yeah, if you know a lot about the sets, like you can know like, oh, red's really strong in this particular set, and I'm in red, so I'm gonna do that. Like, if you do your homework and you bring like a booster pack that's strong in each particular color, so that like, oh, the red commons in this set are super strong, then just remember, evaluate each set that you bring the booster pack for based on multiplayer. Because that's going to change card evaluation. Because Born of the Gods is red is super strong, but a lot of those cards are not great in multiplayer. So just something to think about. This is really hard to grade. How do you grade it?
I give it an A for drafting because I've never done it yet.
I'm going to draft it like an A. But what is it actually?
I'm going to play it like a straight D. A 2 for 2/2 that doesn't do anything in the actual game. I don't know.
But I think like you're going to get something out of that pack you open.
That's true.
So it's higher than a D. I mean, it's worth. I think it's worth drafting. Also, like
it's definitely worth drafting.
Also, if you pass it to someone else and they draft it, you get the worst card of the booster that they add.
Yeah.
So it's really hard. I'm going to give it a B-.
Okay.
And here's my reasoning. If there's a B card for me in that pack, I'll take that over Lure Seeker.
Right.
But if there's a C+ card in there, I'm likely to open at least a C+ card in a brand new shiny pack.
Right. And have the highest advantage from that pack as well.
Yeah, exactly. I'll get to pick anything from that pack from another set, and I'm likely to get a card that's at least a C+ level in that.
That's true.
So
I didn't even think about it, though, but that you get to choose the pack too, so that if you are in a certain color and you know that this set is better for you.
Yeah,
that's actually a really good point. I never even really thought about that.
So I'm gonna say B-.
Okay, cool. I dig it. I can agree with you on that level.
But I am going to draft it like an A.
Yeah, I'm drafting it like an A.
I would probably take it over everything except for like 3 cards in the set just because I've never done it yet.
I know. I just want to play it. And you think 7 times I've drafted Conspiracy and I haven't seen Lure Seeker once.
7? You got to be more like 10 or 11.
Yeah,
right?
Maybe 10 or 11. I'm just saying it to make myself feel better about my life.
Okay, go ahead.
The next card is Lurking Automaton, which is a 5-mana 0/0. Again, this guy's going to get some counters. So reveal Lurking Automaton as you draft it, and note how many cards you've drafted this draft round, including Lurking Automaton. And Lurking Automaton enters the battlefield with X +1/+1 counters on it, where X is the highest number you noted for cards named Lurking Automaton. So how does this work?
It's a little complicated. The best thing to know is that when you draft, you take the token or the advertisement card out, and then there's 15 cards in the pack. So whenever you get past a pack, if it has Lurking Automaton in it, just count the amount of cards really quickly. And then you take that number and compare it to 15, and you'll know how many
cards you've drafted.
Yeah, so let's say you get it passed to you, and there's 10 cards in the pack, including Lurking Automaton.
So that 5 cards have been drafted so far.
Well, it will be the 5th pick out of that.
Right.
So it'll be a 5/5.
Yep.
If there's 8 cards left, that means there's been 7 drafted before. It'll be the 8th, so it'll be a 5-mana 8/8.
Yeah, which is insane.
It'll never go that deep because somebody will pick it up by like. I don't think we've ever seen it go past 6.
No, I've never seen it go past 6.
Because also you figure if it's the 6th card in a pack, like the rest of the cards aren't as good as it. So it's not like there's gonna be something else calling you to grab it.
Right.
So
and just a flat 5 mana for a 5/5 is good already.
Yeah.
5 mana for a 6/6 is even better. 5 mana for a 7/7 should never happen with Lurking Automaton.
I mean, the only way you could make it happen is that card we mentioned earlier called Agent of Acquisitions.
Yep, that is going to make this card go gangbusters because you choose the order of cards that you drafted in.
Yeah, so Agent of Acquisitions is the one where you can draft the entire pack. And then he's right, if
Lurking Automaton is sitting there and you draft Agent of Acquisitions first, you say, all right, I draft this first, then this card, and you go all the way through, and the last card I draft is Lurking Automaton.
And then it's a 15/15.
For 5.
Now, if you can do that in pack 1, Lurking Automaton says it gets X +1/+1 counters where X is the highest number you noted for cards named Lurking Automaton. So every Lurking Automaton you draft is as big as your biggest Lurking Automaton. Mm-hmm. So if you can make one that's a 15/15, then if you can pick up 1 or 2 more in the intervening 2 packs.
Oh my gosh.
It's pretty pie in the sky. It's pretty.
People are going to be hoping.
It's pretty magical fairyland, but damn.
People are going to be hoping that they have any kind of removal.
Yeah.
And it's because someone's going to know you're doing it.
Yeah, you have to draft it face up.
You got to draft it face up. You know that people are going to be planning their decks around that as well, because no one wants someone swinging in for more than, like even if he's a 7/7 and you have like 4 of them, it's like, oh gosh.
I mean, literally, we've drafted this quite a few times. I've never seen above 6/6.
Yeah.
6/6 is just sort of where it lands, and sometimes 5/5.
Yeah, and the other downside is that
even at 6/6, it's good.
Yeah, exactly. And the other downside is, let's say you do get that card and it is a 6/6 at that point, you can't pass it to the next person.
Yes, exactly.
Even if there's another card in that pack that you really want, you kind of have to take it.
How is the 7th card in a pack going to be better than a 5-mana 6/6?
Oh, that's the thing. It's not going to
be.
The
pack would have to be absolutely bonkers for that to happen. It's sort of luck of the draw almost, because it's like wherever it was opened, if you just happen to be seated like 5 or 6 seats from that person, then you're going to get it. And if you're not, then you're not. Like
I've actually never drafted it because it's never just landed in that right place for me to get it on the 5th or 6th.
I've got it a couple times, and it was a 5-mana 6/6 or a 5-mana 5/5 both times, and it's fine. It's not awesome, but for the 6th or 7th pick in the pack, it's fine. I don't know. What do you give it?
I'll give this C+. Maybe even a B-, depending on how my creatures are in my deck. If I don't have a couple of bombs or just fatter guys, then if this guy's a 6/6, then I'll definitely play it.
I'm right there with you. I'm going to give it a C+.
Nice.
Okay, the next card that is Draft Matters is called the Whisper Gear Sneak.
Sneaky.
It's a 1-mana 1/1. So
broken.
That's bad. So that's bad. You're not going to put this in your deck unless it has some really cool text.
Yeah, exactly.
Draft Whisper Gear Sneak face up. During the draft, you may turn Whisper Gear Sneak face down. If you do, look at any unopened booster pack in the draft or any booster pack not being looked at by another player.
Cool. I mean, that's fun.
It's fun. You get to basically, you can open somebody else's pack. You can look through it.
You can open up your own pack even.
That's true. You can see what you're going to get in your next pack. I think it could be useful. Like you look at the guy to your, I don't know, if it's round 1, you look at the guy to your left.
Left, yeah.
Because he's going to pass you the pack, so you can sort of be like, oh, I might get one of these 2 cards. It could help you choose your color.
Yeah, I think that's the most important part. Is this will help you choose your color, and especially if you're opening your own packs, because you're going to get the first pick out of them, to be able to look at the second or third pack and being like, okay, this is what's coming up. And you're looking around the tables like, I think I have the highest chance of getting these. Maybe this will move me one way or the other. But I would never draft this past maybe the 14th or 15th card in the pack.
I disagree with you. I think the most important part is being able to taunt someone as you open their pack and look through the cards, and they can't look at it yet.
Strip them of the cracking. You even take a deep whiff of the cards. I got the first sniff.
Mean. Yeah, I totally agree with you.
In that case, I give it an A.
I'm gonna give this in reality a D-. I just don't think it's very useful. It's fun. It's funny.
Yeah.
But it's gonna go like 14th or 15th.
Yeah, it's a D-. It's almost an F.
Yeah.
It's just not that.
It might be an F.
Yeah.
Okay. I want to skip really quickly just because there's one more Draft Matters cards, but it's in the lands.
Yes.
It's called Paliano, the High City.
I like this guy a lot.
Yeah. This card is good. You want to read it?
Yeah. So Paliano, the High City, is a rare land with the ballingest, coolest art I've ever seen. It is reveal Paliano, the High City, as you draft it. The player to your right chooses a color, you choose another color, then the player to your left chooses a third color. And you can tap it to add 1 mana to your mana pool of any color chosen by the people next to you.
So you're going to get 3 colors from
fixing.
this land.
Yeah.
It's kind of like one of the shards.
Right.
Shard lands, which we know were super powerful in Shards of Alar draft.
And this does not come into play tapped either.
Right. This card is actually kind of bonkers.
Yeah, because here's the thing. You are very likely going... Okay, you get to choose one of the colors,
So you're getting at least one of your colors.
You're getting at least one of your colors. And then out of the rest of it, you have 4 colors left and 2 people choosing 2 different colors. You have a 50% chance of getting those colors.
And plus, I think here's a little hint. Like, if you're the player that's asked to name a color, but this is not your card, so you're either to the left or right of the person that drafted this, you don't want to pick one of your own colors, because that means they're going to start sniping cards, especially if it's early in the draft. Like, if I'm playing red and I say red, now he's going to start taking red cards. I don't want him to do that.
True.
So I'm going to choose a color that's not my colors, which is more likely to be one of his colors.
Yeah.
And if the person to the other side is smart, they'll do the same thing. So there's a decent chance, I'd say it's better than 50% chance if the other players are smart, that you get your other color and a decent splash color, or a color that's
yeah. And that's the thing. It opens up possibilities for splash, because now you're like, okay, cool. If I do play Pelion, I have red, white, and black. I could splash any of these because of this card now.
Yeah, I've actually had a whole lot of success playing 3-color in this, and even 3-color with a 4th color splash, like getting really greedy, because it's a multiplayer format. So the game's going to go longer. Yeah. There's a mechanic we'll talk about later, but it does cause us to draw a few more cards than in a normal game of Magic. So all of a sudden, and there's a decent amount of fixing. So all of a sudden, I just feel like playing more colors is a little bit easier. So I really like this card. The other thing about drafting land cards and putting them in your deck is that most everybody else is going to be playing 23 of the cards they drafted in their deck. You're going to put about 17 lands, 23 other cards. If you use a land card that you drafted, you're now using a card. You have one more card that everybody else doesn't have. You're using 24 cards that you drafted, and they're using 23. Like, it's pretty powerful. So
yeah,
I'm going to give this thing a B. Oh God, can I go B+? I'm going to give it a B.
A B?
B.
Yeah.
I wouldn't draft it over like a Sarah Angel type card.
Right.
A card that's just powerful and does damage and stuff. But
I always find it's tricky with lands, because there's often going to be a card in there that's like, hey, you need more creatures right now, man. Should you be taking this land, or should you be taking this really awesome uncommon? Should you take this? And I'd give it a B as well.
I mean, in pack 1, it's maybe better. It's because you can just start steering towards that stuff.
Right.
But
and there's a little bit of variance here, but I think out of all the cards that you're taking a risk on, this actually has a very high percentage of you actually coming out on top.
Yeah, it's definitely not very high risk.
Yeah.
Okay, so those are all the cards where draft matters. We're gonna go back to the artifacts and finish up the artifacts here.
All right. Hopefully we'll be able to talk about these guys a little more quickly.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the draft matter cards are so unique that they encourage a lot of discussion. Okay, so Altar of Dementia. It is a 2-mana artifact. It says sacrifice a creature. Target player puts a number of cards equal to the sacrifice creature's power from the top of his or her library into his or her graveyard. So this is a milling effect.
Boo.
Yeah, this card sucks. I'm not going to talk about it much. I'm going to give it a F.
Yeah, I'll give it a D-. The only time I'm just thinking here, it's like, all right, let's say you have Grenzo out and you just want to mill yourself out and then use a card like Canal Dredger to put them on the bottom. F.
You're giving it a D- for like a 4-card combo?
Nope, it's an F.
Maybe if you had Marchesa, so your stuff's going to recur. Again, let's not talk about this anymore. It's a crappy card. You're not going to mill out 4 players.
Yeah, and you never want to mill out yourself either. Yeah. Okay. Coercive Portal. It's a 4-drop artifact. Will of the Council.
Oh, there's a new mechanic.
Yeah, new mechanic. At the beginning of your upkeep, starting with you, each player votes for Carnage or Homage. If Carnage gets more votes, sacrifice Coercive Portal and destroy all non-land permanents. If Homage gets more votes or the vote is tied, draw a card.
So we call these vote cards. Basically, the whole table votes, and then there's some kind of effect. This causes voting every single turn. Yeah. This is a mythic, by the way. So everybody's either voting to destroy all non-land permanents or for you to draw a card.
I think this is fun.
Yeah, it's fun.
For one, it's like a wrath effect. It's like a Nevermoral's disc, kind of effect.
A little. You don't have total control.
You don't have total control over it, and everyone's voting for it. I think more often than not, people are not going to vote for Carnage.
Correct.
Just because everyone likes their board, unless one person's getting way out of control, or there are 2 people out of control and 3 people that aren't, then they could flip around very easily. But
I can see this card being like you draw 2 or 3 or 4 cards and your board starts advancing, and then they decide to wrath it. But you've already drawn a bunch of cards, so it doesn't hurt you that much. Yeah. I don't know. It's a tough thing to grade. I think it gets stronger if you have a couple of cards that where voting matters. There's a card called Brago's Representative. You get an extra vote. There's a Grudge Keeper where anytime anybody votes against you, they take 2 damage.
Yeah.
If you have those cards, this causes a vote every turn. So just that alone could be worth it.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you give it?
I'd give it a C.
I give it a C, solid C.
Solid C.
I don't know if it's even solid C. It's sort of a liquid C.
I think I think it's really fun in certain EDH decks for sure. That you maybe when you're not, you don't have a lot of non-land permanents out. Mm-hmm. There's decks that or something like a Marchesa deck.
Yeah.
Where you can sack everything and have it all recur. But yeah, a C.
Okay. The next card is Deathrender. This is a reprint. It's a 4-mana equipment. Equipped creature gets +2/+2. Mm-hmm. Whenever equipped creature dies, you may put a creature card from your hand onto the battlefield and attach Deathrender to it.
I love this card.
This is a pretty powerful card.
In EDH.
Yeah.
In
I still think it's powerful in Conspiracy.
It's definitely so powerful. 4 mana for 2/2. It's 2 to equip. It's not bad because you can put some sweet cards out in the play.
You don't actually even have to put like a huge card. I mean, it's awesome if you have a Palaka Worm in your hand and you just dump like a huge creature onto the table, but you're attaching Deathrender to whatever that creature card is. Mm-hmm. So it really, and people don't know what's in your hand.
Yeah.
So I found that on defense, it's really strong. If you put it on one of those 1/1 spirit tokens.
Yeah, you got a 3/3 flyer and
3/3 flyer, and nobody wants to attack you because they don't actually want to kill that thing because they don't want you to drop like a 9/9 onto the table for free.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think it's pretty good. I'm gonna give it a B-.
I'm gonna give it a B, just because it's +2/+2. It's nice. And the nice thing is it's a free equip on whatever comes into play.
That's true.
I
think it's actually pretty good in a token deck because you just want to make those tokens into real threats, and so you can just like, oh, that one dies, I drop something on the table. If I don't have a creature, I'll just attach it to one of the other tokens and make that thing like.
Not to mention, Deathrender saves you from like the aforementioned coercive portal. I keep saying portal, but yeah, like that. Or a sack outlet. With Ultra of Dementia, you can pop out the guy at your own choice.
That's true.
Yeah, the next one is I think we might have differing opinions. Is Explorer's Scope, which is a 1-drop artifact equipment. Whenever equipped creature attacks, look at the top card of your library. If it's a land card, you may put it on the battlefield tapped, and it's equip 1. Mm-hmm. So I personally really like this card because in Conspiracy, you're going to have someone that you can attack every turn. I think.
I think it's real possible, especially if you have a Flyers deck.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there's 4 other people around the table, or even 3 people around the table. You have a good chance of being able to swing at someone without any consequences, especially because you can equip this to like a 1/1 Spirit Flying token, and it's like, hey man, don't worry, it's just 1 damage. Not going to raise too much ire.
True.
I'm just doing this for the lands. And even if it's not a land card, you do get to see what the next card is. If it is a land card, then great. You just ramped a little bit, and you're going through your deck a little faster.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with all your reasoning. I think that it's stronger in this format than it would otherwise be in a regular 1v1 draft format. This is an F or a D-. But here it's grudgingly playable.
Yeah.
I'm going to give it a C-. I think it's going to be... it'll be right on the edge for me of whether I play it or not.
I'm putting it at a C+, because I think the equip cost isn't too bad. 2 total to get it out and onto something. But that's just me. I've used this already in 2 or 3 drafts, and it's helped me out immensely. But whether to say that card's better than something else, then who knows?
Oh, we're not that far apart.
Yeah.
Okay, the next card is Fire Shrieker. This is, everybody should remember, from M14. It is a 3-mana equipment. It costs 2 to equip, and it says equipped creature has double strike.
Woohoo!
In 1v1, this is a lot more powerful than it is in multiplayer. Yeah. Although a lot of it depends on your deck. If you have ways to make things unblockable, in a Flyers deck, it can be good. We've done 3 equipments in a row. There's actually one more. Like, you can't have very many equipment in your deck because otherwise you're going to run into a situation where you've got a bunch of equipment on the table and no creatures to put it on.
Yeah.
This is an okay one. I don't know. Do you have anything you want to say about it?
I just think it costs too much for this format.
Yeah.
I think it's a much better card in EDH when you can stick it on Sigarda or someone gigantic, your commander. I think the most you're going to be able to do with Fire Shrieker is put it on, like a 3/3 before people start hating you a lot.
Yeah, I mean, if you manage to get like a 6/6 out and put this on it, like,
awesome.
There's also the added downside that like everyone's gonna be like, oh crap, that guy can do like 12 damage to me or 14 damage to me in one hit.
You killed one person off with your Fire Shriek,
and then everybody killed you.
Yeah, and everyone just targets you immediately afterward because you're tapped out.
Yeah, I think it's playable. Again, be careful with a lot of equipment. Definitely don't have more than 2, and I don't even know if 2 is good. But
when you have 23 cards, I think Fire Shrieker, if you are going to use one equipment, it's only I'd rather take Death Render.
Well, of course, but it's a rare. You might not always have that option.
It's true. I'd rather take Explorer Scope.
I'm gonna give it a C-.
I'll give it a C- too.
Okay.
Ooh, nice. Next up, Galvanic Juggernaut. It's a 4-drop for 5/5. Already pretty good stats
4-mana
there.
5/5 is crushes the vanilla test.
Galvanic Juggernaut attacks each turn if able.
No, I hate that crap.
Galvanic Juggernaut does not untap during your untap step. And then, whenever another creature dies, untap Galvanic Juggernaut. Interesting.
Yeah.
3 different things here. So, one thing to note is I think whenever another creature dies, stuff very rarely happens in 1v1 to be effective.
But it happens a lot more.
It happens a lot more in Conspiracy and multiplayer formats. So, that is actually not the biggest downside. Because he will get untapped.
Yeah.
There are going to be things that are dying or creatures getting sacrificed for one reason or another.
It's a really good point because normally you'd look at a card like this and you'd be like, well, it's only an attacking card because I have to attack with it. I'm going to tap it. Mm-hmm. But in a big multiplayer format, if there's 5 players or something, like inevitably, like a lot of turns, you're going to attack with it. And then somebody else is going to kill something else on the board and it's going to untap and you'll be able to use it on defense
or
sometimes.
Someone just can't take 5 damage and they have to chump block it.
Yeah.
You know?
And then it untaps.
It untaps, and it attacks again. The nice thing is that you do get to choose who this attacks.
Yeah, it's a lot better than the Cogwork Tracker.
A lot better than Cogwork Tracker. And, I did manage to play this in one of the games, and I was surprised at how effective it was because there was always, again, someone to attack. And it untapped more often than not. But when its time came, it died. But at the same time, it was actually kind of interesting because overall it did like 15 damage across the board to 3 different people, and I just sort of played the political. I'm sorry, man, I can't.
I have to attack with it.
It's hit. He wants to attack, not me.
Yeah,
the card.
It is true. You do get a little equity from that. Like people don't hold it against you quite as badly if the card says you have to attack, even though like you put it in your deck, dude. So you did make the choice to play it.
You drafted it too.
Yeah,
and it is dealing 5 damage each time.
So what do you give it?
I'm gonna give it a C. Maybe a C+ because I had a really fun experience one time.
I'm going to give it a C. I think it's playable. I think it's actually okay.
Yeah, especially because it will go.
We're saying a lot. I hate these cards. I hate cards that I don't get to make all the choices for.
Yeah.
Okay, the next card is Peace Strider. Yeah. It's a 4-mana 3/3. It's fine. It has an enter the battlefield effect. When it enters the battlefield, you gain, wait for it, 3 life.
Whoa, game changer.
Yay.
Game changer.
I mean, there's not a lot to say about this. It's
like casting life.
Yeah, if you're really hurting for creatures, which sometimes that happens, you're drafting, all of a sudden you look at all your cards and you're like, oh crap, I only have like 10 creatures. I just need any creature that's not totally embarrassing. This will sort of fit that bill.
Yeah. There's so many other things I'd rather play. I'd rather play a 2/2 flyer.
Oh, for sure.
Right. I'd rather play anything that flies. Anything that has anything on it.
Yeah. How many times have we drafted this? Quite a few, and I've never seen one in play. No, I've seen one in play. So it just tells you like people aren't valuing this highly. Yeah. I'm going to give it a D+.
Yeah, I'm going to give it a straight D-.
Whoa.
I don't think 3 life is going to really help you out as opposed to something that can
4 mana 3. Yeah, it's pretty bad.
It's just the 3 life again, like you're putting yourself further away from death and no one else closer to it.
Correct.
All right, moving on, we got Rydal Lantern, which is a 2-drop artifact. For 3 mana, you can put target card from a graveyard on the bottom of its owner's library. This is a reprint, and it is clearly very good with Grenzo, who we'll talk about later.
We'll talk about Grenzo later, but again, he cares about what cards are on the bottom of your library.
He can put them into play.
Yeah.
But, I mean, just no. I can't play this card.
Again, I would only play this card if I had Grenzo. And or I was worried about decking myself, or I thought the game might go so long that other people would deck themselves, which is pretty rare. If I was playing blue and I just had a ton of card draw, maybe. Listen, these are all like really fringe cases. I'm gonna give this thing a D- because in actuality you'll just never play it.
I'll give it a D- too.
Okay.
Just because there will occasionally be a chance that you'll play it. And it is nice, like let's say someone gets rid of your favorite card and you have 10 cards left in your library and you're like, all right, I'm going to put it on the bottom and maybe I'll draw it again before I deck myself. I don't know. I mean, I just... if
you had Aether Searcher and then you had to play the card that Aether Searcher will find and it died, then you could put it on the bottom of your library and play your Aether Searcher and then put it... Listen, that's crazy talk. Let's not even talk about that. D-. Let's move on. All right. Ruined Servitor.
I thought it was ruined too.
Yeah, but it's ruined which means it's still working. It's not ruined.
Right. And it is an artifact.
They just drew glyphs all over it, I guess. It's a 2-mana 2/2. When Ruined Servitor dies, each player draws a card.
No, thank you. I never want to help my opponents.
But you get to draw a card too.
Yeah, but I get to draw a card at the beginning of all my turns.
That's true. So do they.
I don't know.
Yeah, you just played a card that drew you and everybody else a card, so you're kind of down a card when it dies, and it's a 2/2. So
and you lost a creature. You had to spend a card to do it.
Yeah.
The only time I can see it being really effective is if a lot of players are going to be playing with each player sacrifices a creature or something.
Yeah, true.
And you want something to ditch that can give you a little bit of help.
You're not going to know that before you play generally. I'm going to give it a D.
I give it a D-.
Okay.
Silent Arbiter. It's a 4-drop artifact creature. No more than one creature can attack each combat. No more than one creature can block each combat. And that's a 1/5.
This is a really interesting card.
Yeah. He kind of helps himself out with his abilities because he's a 1/5. He's a good blocker for the most part.
Yep.
I don't know. He slows the game down.
I think there's certain decks where you may want this. If you were Control-y, if you were like one of the archetypes is a black-white vote deck. Mm-hmm. And it really doesn't want to attack and block that much.
Yeah.
So it's just slowing the game down a ton. A lot of times it's just not worth it. But it'll totally hose the token deck,
right?
Which there is one, and it'll slow down the flying deck a lot, which is, I think, one of the stronger decks in the format.
Yeah.
So if you're not either of those decks, you might think about it.
Yeah. I like it. I think it's a fun card. I think
you have to build around it.
You have to build around it, yeah. And it's if you have a Rafik EDH deck, you get that card.
Yeah,
you put it in there.
It's good for an EDH deck, true.
Yeah. What'd you give it?
I give it a C+, but with the caveat that your deck really has to be the kind of deck that wants it.
Yeah, I'll give it a solid C, just because it depends on a lot of different things. So you never know.
The next card is Spectral Searchlight.
I like this guy.
Yeah, it's a 3-mana artifact, and you just tap it, then you choose a player, and that player adds 1 mana of any color he or she chooses to his or her mana pool. So this isn't a mana rock, but it's a little bit different in that you can give the mana to somebody else. Mm-hmm. So it's a mana of any color to anybody, including yourself.
Yeah, which is awesome because there are a couple of 1-drop color cards in here. Like, for instance, if someone's like, I wish I had 1 more blue to play Brainstorm, I'd be like, hey, I can help you out.
Give you that.
Yeah, no problem.
It also helps with your fixing and its ramp. Mm-hmm. And, it's 3 mana, but in multiplayer, that doesn't matter as much.
Yeah.
I'm just a sucker for ramp and fixing in general.
And
I love playing multiple colors. Group hug is great for your ability to sort of politic.
Mm-hmm.
What do you give it, Jimmy?
I'd give this a C+, maybe a B-.
I'm C+.
I've put them in my decks almost every time just because.
I don't think I've ever cut one.
Yeah.
In fact, if I get it early, I'm like excited because now I can branch out and take cards that I wouldn't take otherwise.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. So I think it's a pretty strong card. I really like the choose a player aspect of it. I think that was very well designed.
Yeah, pretty cool.
Next card up is Vidalcan Orrery. I have no idea if I'm saying that right. It's a 4-drop artifact. You may cast non-land cards as though they had flash. Wablamo. Hey, that's cool.
This is another reprint. A lot of people were excited about this card. Just that it got reprinted.
Yeah. Probably because it's not that great in a limited format.
Yeah, you don't have the ability to build your deck around it enough to really take advantage of it.
Yeah, and you're not going to have the mana to really do it.
Yeah, you don't have the card draw. You need a lot of things to make this good, but when you make it good, it's awesome. But you need to be able to untap your mana during other people's turns or have more mana, and you need card draw so you can keep playing a lot of creatures.
Yeah.
I mean, in multiplayer format, like a normal one like this, limited, is there really a great reason in most cases not to just play a creature during your turn?
Yeah.
I mean, is it that much better that you need a card in your deck that specifically does it?
I mean, the thing is, it's like you're going to want a blocker up. If you have too many blockers up, then the thing to keep note of here is that you may cast non-land cards.
Correct.
So you could cast sorceries at instant speed.
Correct.
So there, it opens up a lot of options, but at the same time, it's actually, I don't know. You do leave mana up more often than not in multiplayer formats because you don't.
Sometimes you don't want to play your threats because you don't want people to see it. It can sort of be pseudo haste because you can drop it on the end step right before and attack before anyone has a chance to do anything. That sounds better than it is because in EDH your stuff is really powerful. In this, it's like I drop a 4/4 and attack with it. It's like, it's not that scary.
Yeah. The cool thing is you could do some fun little battle tricks. You could flash someone in to block and kill someone that, they're like, I'm just going to swing at you. And then they're down the card and you're up a guy that can attack next turn.
It's true. It could make attacking you a little bit more scary because somebody could be like, looking around the table. You don't have a lot, but you've got a fistful of cards or 3 or 4 cards.
Yeah,
and if they come at you, you can flash in whatever you want. So It's the unknown versus the known.
Yeah.
All of this is adding up to, I don't know what grade.
C minus.
C minus. I'm with you.
Yeah, maybe even D, because I just 4 mana, and then I always like spending my mana on other things.
Yeah, true. I think if you're in blue, it's actually okay because there's enough card draw,
right?
And also like you have a lot of instants and sorceries anyway, yeah. So you can hold up your mana and you get more decision points where it's like, do I want to bring in a creature? Do I want to play this instant or sorcery? Yeah, it's sort of fun to play with. I don't know how awesome it is. I think you can play it.
Yeah, you can play it.
Okay, the last artifact is called Warmonger's Chariot. It's a 2 mana equipment again. It costs 3 to equip. Equipped creature gets +2/+2. As long as equipped creature has Defender, it can attack as though it didn't have Defender. It's really expensive.
It is expensive, and there are a lot of Defender cards in this deck. Or in this set.
Yeah, there are. There's actually a Vent Sentinel deck as one of the archetypes, which I love the Vent Sentinel deck in Rise of the Eldrazi, but I think that deck, you probably want one of these.
Maybe. Yeah, if you're going Vent Sentinel and you see this pop up, grab it. It's gonna be awesome. At the same time, the Vent Sentinel deck is aiming to do damage that's not attack damage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's okay. It's not that great. It's kind of like the other equipments. I think there's certain times when you could play it depending on what your makeup is.
It's very situational.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it a C minus.
I'm gonna give it a D.
Okay.
All right, let's move on to some of these lands.
All right.
Okay. The first land we got up is Mirrodin's Core. It's an uncommon. You can tap it to add 1 to your mana pool, or you can tap it to put a charge counter on Mirrodin's Core, and you can tap it, and you guys might have guessed it, to remove a charge counter to add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool.
So basically, you either tap it to add a colorless, or every other turn you can tap it for a mana of every color.
Yeah.
This sounds bad.
It sounds bad,
but
it helps you fix.
Yeah, it helps you fix, and fixing is important, and being a little bit slower is not as big of a hit in a big multiplayer format as it is in one-on-one. In one-on-one, this card is horrible because it's like half a mana every turn. Yeah. Until you get to the point where you don't need the fixing, and then it's fine.
Yeah.
Luckily, it does tap for one colorless. Which means it's really like 3/4 of a mana every turn, maybe?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because I did play this last time I played the game, and I was able to, because a lot of times I just had 1 mana still there, and so instead of just tapping the Mirrodin's Core for colorless, I just added a charge counter.
So you got to the point later on where you had 3 or 4, and then
I had 4 charge counters, and I was like, okay, this can be anything I wanted anytime. And I was playing a lot of cards that had kickers on them, so it would always help out a little bit. So I found there was a lot of utility later on with it if you don't necessarily need that extra mana to begin with, because it sucks if you have to just tap it once for a counter and only use it the next turn.
I found these go pretty late. I like to play a lot of colors. I've played 2. I think I even played 3 of them in one of my decks. Because once I got 2, I was like, sweet, I can play 4 color now.
Yeah.
So and again, the format can be really slow. Can be pretty slow. So you're not punished as much for having it. So all that adds up. I don't know. What do you think?
I give this C. Maybe C+, because I find I do play this pretty often.
Yeah, I'm going to give it a C because I think I'm not sure I've ever cut one, but I'm really mana greedy, so maybe it's
true.
Yeah, maybe it's a C-, but I'll give it a C. Okay, the next card is called Quicksand. Wow. You can either tap it to add 1 mana to your mana pool, or you can tap it and sacrifice it, and target attacking creature without flying gets -1, -2 until end of turn.
Okay, cool.
So it's kind of like a free shock.
Yeah.
Only to an attacking creature that doesn't have flying.
But you do sacrifice a land.
And you do sacrifice a land.
Which is like, do you want to sacrifice a land?
I mean, do you even put this in the place of a land in your deck, or do you put it as a spell?
It's a great threat. I'll say this much. If you're not worried about mana fixing as much, and you have people that are going to come at you, because let's think about this. Quicksand is not an effective card late game.
Yeah,
right?
True.
It's not going to really help you when you're at parity and you're sort of tied down.
And everybody's got 4/4s and stuff now.
Exactly. It's really good opening because maybe you can mitigate some of the damage that would be coming at you otherwise, because no one wants to lose their early drops. But again, it's also creatures without flying, and so it'll be worthless against some archetypes entirely.
True.
So I don't know. I could play it.
It doesn't have to be attacking you.
It's true. That's true. I forgot that. You could just
nuke
anyone.
Yeah, you can nuke. I think
but ideally you'd want to do it for yourself.
Yeah, I think if you have morbid cards, then it's possibly useful because you can make a creature die for cheap and then play a tragic slip or something.
You could even do it to your own creature, to be honest.
Yeah, you'd attack with it and do it. I mean, that's pretty ballsy.
It is pretty ballsy. I mean, well,
you have to be either desperate or way ahead.
Yeah, super ahead. Yeah, so it's very, very conditional there. I would give this a C minus.
Yeah, C minus. I agree.
Yeah. All right. This last land we have is a reprint, and it's one of the more famous lands. It's called Reflecting Pool, and you tap it to add to your mana pool 1 mana of any type that a land you control could produce.
It's an interesting one.
It's like a doubler, right?
Yeah, because not fixing exactly. You already have to have a mana that creates.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is awesome with that Poliano, the High City.
Right. Oh my goodness, because you can add one of any.
You can add 3 colors.
Right?
Yeah.
But the chances you're going to get 2 rare lands drafted in a 3 booster pack draft is pretty low.
If you have a lot of stuff that costs double of the same color, like double white, double blue, whatever, then I think it gets a little better.
Yeah. It gives you more options, and that's always nice.
It's a great land in EDH.
It's a great land, yeah. Just in EDH, it's an awesome land. But for this format, it's just a land.
Yeah, it's fine. But yeah, if it fixed somehow, it would be a lot better. It doesn't.
Right. At least it doesn't come into play tapped. I'll
True.
just say that much.
True.
So that's nice. I'd give it a C.
Yeah, I give it a C. I think it's fine, but I would definitely not draft it over a card that a decent card that like a decent creature or something.
Yeah, exactly. All right, let's move on to white.
Right. We're into white now.
Excellent. One of my favorite colors in this set is definitely white.
Okay, so our first card is a Johnny's Sunstriker. It's 2 white, so white, for a 2/2 with lifelink. It's a cat cleric.
Yeah. A couple things to note. It is 2 white, so it's not just any color mana. If you have 2 colors in there and you're trying to place turn 2, you better hope you have 2 planes in your hand. Lifelink, it's 2/2. I
mean, if you get it out on turn 2, being multiplayer, you're probably going to be able to get in with it once or twice. That means it can gain you 4 to 6 life, and then do nothing after that.
Honestly, I think it's better as a chump blocker.
Yeah. So if you're playing a card only because it's some chump block, C minus.
Yeah. C minus, maybe D plus.
Okay.
They're just better 2 drop options.
Oh, you don't even need a ton of 2 drops, so it's not like a normal format.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Next up, we got Apex Hawks. It's flying, so already great. It's 3 mana for a 2/2, but you're able to kick it multiple times for 1 and a white. You may pay an additional 1 and a white any number of times you cast it to kick it, and every time you kick it, it gets a +1/+1 counter.
So for 5 mana, it's a 3/3. For 7 mana, it's a 4/4. Again, it's a flyer. Or you can just go with the 3 mana 2/2 flyer as the base, which is.
I think this card is great.
It's a Windrake with upside.
Yeah, this card is awesome because 1, if you're early game, just play it for 3 and you get a 2/2. Late game, you have a bunch of mana lying around. Boom, you got a fatty flyer on the board. Look at this. Look at the art. He's carrying like a giant rat. He's flying with his friends. He looks like he's having a great time.
I agree. I think this is a really good card. All the kicker cards are a lot stronger in this format because the games go longer, and you don't want to draw a card, on turn 14 that's just completely irrelevant, but would have been awesome on turn 3. Yeah. This is a card that's awesome on turn 3 and still good on turn 14.
Yeah. So this definitely helps you out in all 4 of the categories of early game, when you're at parity, when you're losing, and when you're winning. It has options.
It's also pretty strong with all the conspiracy cards. We'll talk about them later, but this is one of those cards that it's a common. You're going to see quite a few of them. If you get 3 or 4 copies and then you get a couple conspiracy cards, it can actually be pretty bonkers.
Yeah, and actually a lot of the grades of these cards change based on whether or not you have a conspiracy that can affect it. So just keep that in mind. That
a lot of the grades change based on if you already have multiple copies of it. So if you have 1 Apex Hawk, it's okay.
Yeah.
If you have 2, it's a lot better. If you have 3, 4, it can get pretty broken because you can start taking conspiracies really high.
Yeah, but that'll be the fun thing for you guys to do is after this podcast is over, you can look at the conspiracy cards and readdress the cards in the draft and say, oh, okay, so this could happen if I get these together, and that'll change sort of how you can perceive the card.
So what do you give it?
I give it a B. I'm always going to play this guy.
Yeah, I'm always going to play him. I think I give him a B minus. I don't know if I choose to go into white just because this guy's in the pack, but he's very strong.
Yeah, I'd say the only downside is the multi-kicker is 2. He's already costing 3.
Yeah. And if it was 1, though, can you imagine? He'd be just broken.
That would be broken.
Yeah. So
it has to be 2.
Yeah. I also think the white-blue Flyers deck is maybe the best deck in the format. So
as it usually is.
Yeah, but it's It seems even more crazy that it's still strong when there's 5 players.
Yeah, exactly. Well, having flyers and
there's a lot of flyers. There's not a lot of answers to flyers in the other colors.
There's a lot of spirit tokens.
Yeah, it's a good, like, if I have to choose, like, and I want to win, like, I'm gonna try and go into that deck. So
yeah,
gets a little bit. So maybe it's a B. I'm still gonna say B minus.
Okay.
Brago's Representative is the next one. It's 3 mana, 2 and a white for a human advisor. It's a 1/4. It says, while voting, you get an additional vote.
Ooh, and the votes can be for different choices or for the same choice.
Yeah, very interesting that.
Yeah. I feel like this card we can refer to very often moving forward because there are going to be a lot of times when voting is going to be sweet, especially when you have the option to vote one more time.
We might talk about it a lot, but is it
worth it?
Yeah. It's deck specific. If you're building the black-white vote deck, which I think can be good, you just have to be the only one doing it.
Yeah.
If somebody else is trying to build that same deck or a voting-based deck, like, you're going to split up the cards too much.
Yeah.
But if you have this and Grudge Keeper, we'll talk about Grudge Keeper later, but it creates a sort of a mini combo that can do some stuff.
I think this card is honestly at its absolute best when you're 1v1 and you have vote cards.
Yeah.
Because you win every vote.
You get to choose.
And you get to choose, especially there's certain cards that really let you, like Will of the Council. That just kind of breaks it. I think it's okay. It depends. C, just because it's got 1/4 too, it can block.
Yeah, I'm going to give it a C also.
One thing I found is that Brago's Representative is very rarely attacked. Very rarely, like, taken out. Especially because
people just don't care about it as much.
Doesn't care about it as much. Yeah, it's not a threat to them because it's more of a blocker. So yeah, I like him. I like him a lot. All right, next up is Council Guardian. It costs 6 total for 5 and a white. It's a giant soldier creature. Will of the Council. It's also a 5/5, I might mention. Will of the Council. When Council Guardian enters the battlefield, starting with you, each player votes for blue, black, red, or green. Council Guardian gains protection from each color with the most votes or tied for most votes. So
it can't get protection from white.
Can't get protection from white. Let's say there's 5 players. I vote for red. The next person votes for red, and then it goes green, blue.
So red is the color that it gets protection from.
But if it's tied, then it gets protection from multiple colors.
They got to be crazy to make it get tied.
Yeah.
If you had 2 votes, you could vote for 2 colors.
Yep.
And then they could still orchestrate it however they want. They'll talk among themselves. You're normally going to get one protection from one color.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not that great.
Yeah. It's so conditional, and oftentimes no one's going to... I mean, unless you're really pulling favors and people really like you and you can convince them to do what you want them to do.
Or somebody owes you.
If somebody owes you, right. But then, you can't rely on anyone else but yourself at the end of the day.
And if somebody owes you, you can orchestrate that into advantage from a lot of different cards, not just some crappy card like this. I mean, it's a 6 mana 5/5, so it's not completely unplayable.
Yeah.
I'm going to give it a D+.
I'll give it a D.
Okay.
I just haven't played it. But this next card, whew.
Yeah, Council's Judgment. This one's gotten a lot of press also, for Legacy, no less. Mm-hmm. It says, Will of the Council. That's a vote card. It's a sorcery for 3 mana, 2 white and a colorless. Starting with you, each player votes for a non-land permanent you don't control. Exile each permanent with the most votes or tied for the most votes.
Ooh. Exile.
So, yeah, it exiles at least one thing, although you don't necessarily get to choose what that thing is. Mm-hmm. But it could exile more than one. In fact, we've seen it exile more than one on a couple of occasions.
Yeah.
Really good with Brago's Representative, which gives you extra votes. This is in Legacy. They're using it to get rid of the True Name Nemesis in one-on-one.
Right. Yeah,
it's one of the cheap ways to get rid of it. Yeah.
I think one of the important things is exile a permanent that you don't control.
Correct.
Right. So if you did
it can never hurt you.
Yeah. If you did it 1-on-1 and you named one thing and the other person named something else on their table for some reason, then both those guys get tossed out. But
if it's 1-on-1, you get what you're aiming at.
Yeah. You exile it no matter what.
Yeah.
I think it's really fun with Brago's Representative because I did this a couple times where I chose 2 things that were the biggest threats on the board. Yeah. I'm like, guys, if this vote ties, they both go away. And so the people that don't own those 2 things are going to be like, okay, I vote for one of those and you vote for the other one. It's like fun stuff can happen like that. And
it also can go the other way, though, where you vote for something and then all the other 3 players vote for something else.
Something else, right.
And it's just like, it didn't hit what you wanted it to.
Yeah. At the same time, though, this will almost guaranteed get rid of the biggest threat on the board.
True, that's not yours because everyone's going to be like, well, yeah, because the other players, besides the player whose threat it is. Yeah, I agree. So I'm going to give it a B-.
I'm gonna give this a B plus. If I'm playing white, this is going in there no matter what.
Well, yeah, I'm not cutting it, but I'm not picking it ahead of something of a B or a B plus, which what I consider like Sarah Angel level, something.
Right. Yeah, at the end of the day, it still is a sorcery,
and it misses sometimes. I mean, I think a lot of times it connects, but yeah.
I mean, to be honest, Swords to Plowshares is honestly.
Oh yeah.
Okay, Courier Hawk. It's a 2-drop for 1 and a white. It's a creature. It's a bird, and it's a flying vigilant 1/2.
I think normally this is not a great card, but the flyers are pretty powerful in this set, and there's things like favorable winds that buff all your flyers.
It's nice to have around.
Also with the conspiracy cards, you can make it pretty powerful. I still don't think it's awesome. The fact that it has vigilance in multiplayer is actually vigilance is much more powerful because a lot of times the reason you don't want to attack is not because you don't have a profitable attack. It's because
you want to leave up to block.
You can't afford a crackback from 2 or 3 players. It's not like 1-on-1 where it's like I'm going to attack him. I have a profitable attack.
Coming at me next
yes,
turn.
Exactly. But I have 3 or 4 players I have to worry about. So vigilance is actually more relevant. I'm still not giving it a super high grade. I think I'm going to give it a C.
Yeah, I could see that. C or C minus. If you have better flyers, then you're going to play those. Obviously, Apex Hawk is better. But yeah.
Okay.
I'll take it.
All right, the next card is Custody Soulbinders.
One of my favorite cards in the entire set.
Yeah, it's a rare. It's 4 mana, 3 and a white for a 0/0. So you might be anticipating some text here, and there is. Custody Soulbinders enters the battlefield with X +1/+1 counters on it, where X is the number of other creatures on the battlefield. Wow.
Boom. 5 players. This thing's going to be fat.
Wow. I mean, we've seen this come in as 18/18 for 4 mana.
Especially with token decks out there.
Yeah, it can get nutso.
Here's where it's nuts. It's the next ability.
It has more text. Yeah. So you can also tap 2 in a white. You don't have to tap the Soulbinders. So it's 2 and a white, and then you remove a 1/1 counter from Custody Soulbinders, and you put a 1/1 white spirit creature token with flying onto the battlefield.
This may seem like it's not powerful, but no, this is incredibly powerful.
Crazy.
It's crazy. You can do it at instant speed. You can do it at the end of your turn. You can do it. Custody Soulbinders could be tapped. You could do it. Oh my gosh, this is so great. You get to put flyers on the battlefield, and this guy, I mean, if he's like a 16/16, it becomes a 15/15. Like, that's not a big deal.
I think this is far and away. This is a cycle. Each color has a guy like this. This is the best one by far.
By far.
1/1 white, 1/1 spirit flyers are like relevant. Like, it's not making something that's not worth a lot. It's making something that's actually very powerful.
Not to mention, there is going to be a card later on in white that makes your low tokens the most broken things on the battlefield.
Yeah, intangible virtue and favorable winds. So this card, this card is bonkers.
Every time I played this, I've loved it.
There's also, if you have Brago, you can flicker them. You did this, which was freaking brutal. So you take a couple counters also. It comes in as an 18/18. That's not good enough. I'm going to make him a 14/14, but I have 4 flyers. Then I'm going to flicker him out so he becomes in 20/20 now because there's more creature cards.
Counting my own flyers,
what do you give it?
I give this an A minus or an A. I give it an A.
I give it an A. I give it an A.
It's my favorite white card, I think.
I give it an A. It's a bomb. It's a straight bomb.
Yeah.
If you land it out on the battlefield and, they can't immediately crack and kill you, you have a really good chance to take over that game.
Not to mention, you can combine some conspiracy cards with it, make it really fun, just by giving it haste.
Yep.
All right, Custody Squire is our next card. It's 4 and white. It's a Spirit Cleric, so as you can guess, it's going to be a flying 3/3, and it's got Will of the Council. When Custody Squire enters the battlefield, starting with you, each player votes for an artifact, creature, or enchantment card in your graveyard. Return each card with the most votes or tied for most votes to your hand.
So you're almost always going to get 1 card from your graveyard back, depending on what's in your graveyard. This is good. I mean, it's card advantage.
Yeah, it's card advantage. You get 3/3/5 for 5, which is it's okay. It's not bad.
It does have a little bit of setup cost in that you have to have something in your graveyard that you can target. A lot of times this is a 5-drop, so a lot of times there will be something, but not always.
And to be honest, you're most often going to get a creature. Very rarely are you going to have an artifact or enchantment in there for you to grab. I think it's a strong card. There aren't many flyers. So
definitely 3/3 is bigger as a flyer. It's big. It's pretty relevant for the entire game.
Yeah, I'd give this maybe a C plus, B minus.
Yeah, I think I'd give it a B minus.
Yeah. I mean, just because it has flying always gives it.
It's a 3/3 flyer that
up.
nets you a card up very often. I mean, sign me up for that.
I mean, it's great late game. Again, this works well in all situations of the game. You know, early game setting up, even if you don't have a card there, you still have a 3/3 flyer for 5. You're not going to really play it that early, but especially if you're in like parity and you need something back, you know, imagine someone gets ready for Custodian Soulbinders.
I mean, I think the only downside is that it's a 5-drop. You know, it's a little bit expensive, but again, in big multiplayer games, we're not as worried because they tend to be slower. So it's similar to M14, how like in M14 draft, like you stopped really caring about the mana cost of everything because the format was slow enough to allow you to do most things.
Right.
So then it was just a question of what are you doing? And I think this is similar. So, okay. The next card is called Doomed Traveler. This is a classic. Yep. It's a 1 white mana for a 1/1 human soldier. When Doomed Traveler dies, put a 1/1 white spirit creature token with flying onto the battlefield.
2 for 1.
Kind of, because I don't think a 1/1 guy on the ground is really a full card. But this has actually surprised me. I haven't ever really loved this card in the past. Sometimes it's been serviceable. But because there is a token deck and there is a flying deck, and both are strong.
Yeah.
Both have anthem type effects that exist for them.
Right.
And spirit tokens is totally a thing. There's a lot of things that create spirit tokens, and there's a few cards that, you know, like Echoing Courage or things like that. So I think this all adds up, and it's playable, not super exciting. I give it a C-.
Yeah, I give it a C- as well. Just because it's great in the early part of the games, and that's about it. You know, the other states of the game, you're not really going to want to play it. You don't want to draw this turn 10.
Not really.
You know,
unless you have a sack outlet, even then you're not super happy.
Yeah, you're just not really happy with it either way. Okay, next up is Glimmerpoint Stag, which is a 4-drop, 2 and 2 white. It's a vigilant 3/3 elk. It's
Elmer, as they call it on Limited Resources. Hey guys, we use your special name thing.
Nice. That's true. All right, so when Glimmerpoint Stag enters the battlefield, exile another target permanent, return that card to the battlefield under its owner's control at the beginning of the next end step.
So Flicker's one thing. It's kind of like a Flicker Whisk, but it's not as awesome because it's not a flyer.
Yeah, exactly. It is vigilant, so you can attack with a nice 3/3 body for 4, which is okay.
I think in like we said, in multiplayer, vigilance is a little stronger.
Yeah, and actually, you know, to be honest, after playing another draft or two with Glimmerpoint Stag, I've come to like it more because of things like Custodian Soulbinders and all the other 0/0 creatures out there that have tokens on them. Because,
that's true.
You know, it can get rid of tokens. You know, if Custodian Soulbinders is getting out of control, you can clear it off the board, and hopefully by the time it comes back, it's not as strong. There are ways, you know, it can kill tokens.
Or you can reset your
you can reset your own stuff as well. I think it has a lot of utility. Again, that's dependent on what's on the board, but it's not terrible.
Yeah, I think it's playable. I'm gonna give it a. I don't think it's a super high pick. What do you give it?
Yeah, I'm gonna give it a D+, like you did.
Okay, D+. He already knows what I gave it before I even gave it. How does he do that?
How do I do that? It's like I have some kind of document next to me or something.
All right, next card, Guardian Zendikon.
Aha.
That is it's an enchantment aura. It costs 2 and a white. It says Enchant Land. Enchanted Land is a 2/6 white wall creature with Defender. It's still a land. When Enchanted Land dies, return that card to its owner's hand. This is an interesting one. I think there's only one use, and it's the Vent Sentinel deck.
Yep, and that's what I used in last weekend.
Yeah, and I think, like I said, I love Vent Sentinels, so I think it's sort of fringe playable only in that deck. Otherwise, this card basically sucks.
Yeah.
So
you don't want to be changing your lands into things you can't tap because you want to defend with them.
And it can't attack. Like, I'll change my land into a 3/3 creature that can attack, but
yeah, that'd be fun.
A 2/6 wall, like, who... I don't know. Maybe in the vote deck where you're not going to kill people through attacking and blocking, so you're going to sit back. It might be something.
Right.
I'm going to give it a D.
I give it a D. Unless you're playing Vent Sentinel, this is just not useful. Maybe even the D-. You know, outside the Vent Sentinel deck, I would never play the card.
Yeah. Okay.
There's just
Fair
so
enough.
many other things to do. All right. Next card is an enchantment, Intangible Virtue, 1 and a white. Creature tokens you control get +1/+1 and have vigilance.
This is actually, like, there's been some sets where it's not good.
Mm-hmm.
It's good in this set.
It's great in this set.
Yeah.
If you draft the right cards for that card, then it's a bomb. It's the best thing you could drop on the board.
If you're in a green-white token deck, which is a thing, there's a lot of tokens it can make. This thing is like a super powerful card. It's it can be a blowout. I mean,
exactly.
You can get to the point where you can literally kill two players at once by dropping Intangible Virtue at the right time. I think it's unplayable in certain decks, but usually white has a lot of token creators, so even if you're only white, there's a chance that you could still play it. You'd have to have a lot of the Rousing of the Spirits, the Custody Soulbinders, the Doom Travelers,
and there's a card that you can reveal everyone parlays, and you can get tokens on the battlefield for that.
I might even play it if I just had two Squirrel's Nest and one other thing.
Squirrel's Nest. I forgot all about that.
We haven't talked about green yet, and we'll get to it later. But this card is actually pretty strong in this set. What do you give it?
I'm gonna give this a solid C+.
I think I'm gonna give it a C. I'm gonna up my grade.
Yeah, I think if you're running tokens and stuff, then this card is a must play.
Yeah.
If you're not, then it's not so hot.
Yeah. If you know somebody's drafting that deck, though, I mean, man, you might hate draft this in the middle of the pack. It's pretty devastating when they drop it.
Yeah, totally.
Okay, the next card is called Core Chant. It's 3 mana, 2 and a white for an instant. It says, all damage that would be dealt this turn to a creature you control by a source of your choice is dealt to another target creature instead.
Wow.
It's a little bit clunky.
Yeah.
It's pretty clunky. It can be
very
sort of
clunky.
pseudo removal. I think it's really clunky. I think you'd be a little bit desperate to play this card.
Yeah, there's better battle tricks that cost less and are more effective.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to think of all these instances where, what if they attack me with a 6/6 and I only have a 1/1 and then I can turn around and kill it?
Yeah, and kill it or something else, or get rid of another threat on the board. I think that's maybe the best part is you can choose someone else's creature and being like, oh, actually, this guy can go bye-bye now.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know. It's a little bit hard to set up. It's slightly better in multiplayer because you can plan it with another player at the table. You can be like, hey, listen, I've got this thing. We both want to kill that other thing over there. What you do is because he'll never block with that. You attack me with it, and then I'll use this to bounce the damage over to that thing.
Yeah.
And so it has a little bit more use in multiplayer. I still think I give it a D+.
Yeah, I'll give it a D.
Okay.
Just because battle tricks, I think, aren't. It's a waste of a card most times for a one-off that maybe doesn't give you as much upside as just a straight creature would.
And you still have the same problems with removal that we talked about in our deck building episode, which is like if you and another player exchange cards, so you're at card parity with one of the players, and you both at card disadvantage to the other players at the table.
Exactly. Yeah. All right. The next card we have is called Moment of Heroism. It's an instant for a 1 and a white. Target creature gets +2/+2 and gains lifelink until end of turn.
Another combat trick.
Another combat trick. I'd say it's on the same level as Core Chant. I just don't think it's useful.
Yeah, I actually like it a little less than Core Chant. I just don't think it does enough to warn a card.
Yeah, I definitely like it less than Core Chant. Again, lifelink is only in certain times helpful.
I mean, lifelink in 1v1, what it can do is if you're racing another player, it can give you a big life swing.
Right.
That all of a sudden you're racing. Now I just gained 6 life, and we're not racing anymore. You're just so far behind, because I gained a bunch of life that we can't race. But
or stick it on your Custody Soulbinders and hit them for 20.
True. In multiplayer, you're just not in a racing situation all that often.
Yeah.
You'd have to have everybody else eliminated down to one player.
Yeah, you have to play it so carefully at that point that it's just, I wouldn't play it. I give it a D.
Yeah, I give it a D also.
Okay, cool.
Next card is called Noble Templar. It's 6 mana, 5 and a white for a human cleric soldier. It's a 3/6 with vigilance. It also has plane cycling for 2, which means you can pay 2, discard this card from your hand, and then you can search your library for a planes card, reveal it, and put it into your hand. Then shuffle your library. So it's also doubles as fixing. Mm-hmm. This card rarely gets played. It's the only thing I would say is because of plane cycling.
Yeah.
It's a little bit of fixing. Like I put one in my deck once because I like to play like 4-colored decks.
Yeah. Which
is kind of crazy, and so you just need fixing. So I've actually put it in there only because I want to plane cycle it.
Yeah. I think ultimately this card is good only in 2 ways, which is plane cycling and when you need a defender.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to swing with a 3/6 with vigilance it's okay. And it costs 6 to get out. You're not going to put it out till like the mid to late game.
It's pretty crappy.
It's pretty crappy. I mean, the only time I could see this really being effective is with a card like Brainstorm, where you ditch 2 cards that you just don't want in your hand, and then you can use this to get a free shuffle.
Yeah. By the way, that's going a long way. I'm going to give
it is going a long way.
I'm going to give it a D+.
Yeah, I'll give it a D.
Okay.
Next up, Pillarfield Ox. We've seen this guy before. 3 in the white, creature, Ox, 2/4.
I'm not even going to talk about it. D.
Okay.
Right. Pride Guardian. It is 1 white mana for a 0/3 with Defender. When Pride Guardian blocks, you gain 3 life.
Okay.
Vent Sentinel deck. This is okay. The thing I will say about this card is, like, for one, 0/3 is really not that helpful for very long.
Yeah.
Also, in this set, there's a card that can switch the power and toughness of a creature until end of turn. It's called the Crook Claw Transmuter. We'll talk about it later. It's also a common, the Crook Claw Transmuter is. And it basically kills this thing. I think this is the only creature it just kills outright when it comes in.
Yeah, I think so too. There might be one more that we haven't.
So there's a common out there that kills this thing for free.
Yeah.
And usually people play their transmuter out, and sometimes they look around the table and they're like, well, I'll just kill that.
Yeah, exactly. Pride Guardian, I tried playing it in a deck that didn't have Defender because I was like, you know what? I don't see many dethroned cards going around, so it's okay to have the most life in this game. And ultimately, I almost was never able to block with it because flyers.
Yeah.
So,
or just something with 4 power or more.
Yeah, exactly. For a 1-drop, I could see this being okay in first turn. Terrible late game. Terrible parity. Terrible when you're losing.
D-.
More terrible when you're winning.
D-.
F.
All right.
Pristine Angel. I've cracked open I don't know how many boosters of this set, and I haven't seen this guy yet.
I want to see it.
Yeah, it's an angel, so things are already sounding good. It's 6 mana, 4 and 2 white for a 4/4 flying. As long as Pristine Angel is untapped, it has protection from artifacts and from all colors. Whenever you cast a spell, you may untap Pristine Angel.
This card is sweet. Yeah, this card's sweet. 4/4 flyer is there's only 1 card bigger than that in this set, which doesn't even matter because it's got protection from all colors, artifacts.
Yeah.
This basically, like, you can attack with it, but it's actually just a huge stop sign.
No, you will attack with it because you have a second main phase. After you attack, you can just play the smallest little thing and get it untapped.
True, but I mean, it just opens it up. Like,
True.
I think there's a good amount of time where you're just like, I have this thing, and it stops everything.
Yeah.
So, you can block with it. I think, that's something you need to think about when you have it, because in multiplayer, like, blocking is almost more important because you'll have 1 attack phase, but your opponents have 4 other attack phases. So you're defending 4 times and attacking once, potentially. Anyway, this card is bonkers to me. I'm going to give it an A.
Yep. And it's situational. If you want to attack with it, and you could cast something small after to untap it, great, and you know that no one has 1 white up to swords it.
If you have an instant, it's that you can totally screw them because you can attack with it. They go to tragic slip it. You use your instant, untap it, and the tragic slip just freaking fizzles. So they just got nothing for their. Yeah. That kill me if that ever happens.
Yeah, give me an A on that guy though.
All right, Rhea Dawnbringer is the next one. She is 9 mana, that's 3 white and 6 colorless, for a legendary creature angel. She's a 4/6 flyer. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield.
Heck yeah.
We have seen this come out once or twice in our drafts.
Everyone goes to kill it immediately.
Yeah. It costs 9. That's a lot, but you're often going to get there in multiplayer. In a normal draft, 9 is just like you'll never cast it.
Yeah, and here's the thing: when you do cast it, this is a card that will win you the game.
Yeah, I mean they have to come kill you really soon because your creatures are just going to keep coming back.
Yep,
it's really hard to get through a 4/6 flyer to begin with. In fact, there's no creature in the set that naturally gets through a 4/6 flyer. No other flying creatures that get through it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's super strong.
It just costs 9 is the only thing.
Yeah.
But, death render it out. I don't know. Find a way to get it out there.
Just 9's not that hard to get to in multiplayer. Like, you look around at the end of the game and everybody has 9, 10 mana. It's just games go that long. I mean, there's going to be some percentage of games where you don't get that far, but I'd say 80% of the time you get to 9 mana.
Yeah. At least you're going to get to at least turn 15, I found.
I mean, a lot of times, yep.
Yeah, so she's a straight A.
Yeah, I give her an A also.
Maybe an A- just because of the 9. But
yeah.
And she puts so much of a target on your back. I don't know.
But she comes out on turn 9 by then, yeah.
Make sure you put her in Calio the Vast, though. That's for sure. All right, next up we got Rousing of the Souls.
I really like this
sorceries card. Now. Yeah, it's got 2 in the white. Parlay. Each player reveals the top card of his or her library. For each non-land card revealed this way, you may put a 1/1. No, you put a 1/1 white spirit creature token with flying onto the battlefield. Then each player draws a card.
This is our first instance of parlay.
Yeah. So for parlay, the mechanic is almost always reveal the top card of your library. If it's a non-land card, then it affects whatever's happening. And
everybody reveals a top card.
And everyone always gets to draw that card.
Correct. So everybody reveals a card. It affects the card that you just played, and then everybody draws a card. This is a really cool mechanic. It causes, this is what we were talking about earlier when we said that it causes more card draw overall throughout the games, which makes it so that, you're mana screwed less often because, you just get to draw a few more cards, which is good because they made the format so that, because it's no fun playing with 5 players and one dude's mana screwed. It's no fun ever to be mana screwed, but it's way less fun in multiplayer. So I actually love this card.
I love it because when other people use it, I get to draw.
Yeah.
I love it because when I use it, I get to put tokens out.
Yeah, and it matters how big the pod is. This is one of those, all the parlay cards are like, you have to think when you're in the draft and you're choosing your cards, like, how many people am I going to be playing with in the game? If it's 5, this card is awesome. Yeah, if it's 4, this card is good. If it's 3, this card is worse.
Yeah, and again, this card combos nicely with cards like Brainstorm, which otherwise would be okay because you can stack the deck so that at least you have one you're going to have a non-land card that you're drawing that turn.
I mean, I think usually like 60% of everybody's deck is non-land. So if you've got 5 people, you're going to get on average like 3 spirit tokens. So 3 power in the air for 3 mana is awesome. Yeah, it combos well with some of the conspiracy cards we'll talk about later, but some of them make it cost 1 less mana. Some of them double it up, so you cast it twice. Some of them make it so that you draw a card when you play it. Like, I love this card. I always take it pretty high.
Yeah, me too. And to bring it back to the Explorer scope, if you're using that guy, then you're almost guaranteeing that you're going to have a non-land card up top because you're putting the rest of them onto your battlefield.
The other thing I should say is there's not a lot of common or uncommon. Well, I don't know if there is. Maybe there's one wrath effects in the set. So so the 1/1 tokens are actually like harder to get rid of. In general.
I'd give this a C plus, maybe even a B minus.
I think I wrote down C plus, but I think I just talked myself into B minus.
Yeah, right. I think you talked me into it too.
And also there's favorable winds and intangible virtue, which both pump your tokens. So you have 2 ways to sort of, and there's echoing courage, which is a combat trick that will affect all the tokens at once. Yeah. It's just well positioned in this set. Yeah.
And there are very few answers to lots of tokens. Yeah. There are a couple, but not as many as I think are necessary to really beat the deck.
And in the irony that is life, we are going to talk about one of those counters to the lots of tokens as the very next card. Yep. It's called Rout. It's 5 mana, 2 white, and 3 for a sorcery. It says, you may cast Rout anytime you could cast an instant if you pay 2 more colorless to cast it. So that would make it 7 mana if you want it to be an instant. And it says, destroy all creatures, they can't be regenerated.
Nice.
So it's basically Fated Retribution that you can cast as a sorcery for 2 less.
Yeah.
Oh no, Fated Retribution takes care of Planeswalkers too, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's true. But you're not going to see many Planeswalkers in draft, I'll say that much.
Yeah. It's Wrath of God, whatever.
Yeah, it's Wrath of God for 5. It's got Elish Norn being a total badass on it. I'd say...
Oh yeah, that is Elish Norn.
Yeah. I'd say it's pretty great.
Cool.
I like it. The thing is, you're not gonna really see it very often in draft because it's one of the rares. Yeah,
it's a powerful effect. It does things that no other card can do. It can sort of save you in situations where no other card would save you. I think in multiplayer, wrath effects are even more powerful. I would literally put this in any deck that I was playing white. Yeah, even if I'm the token deck or the flying deck, because if the game's going badly and you just don't have anything and people have a lot of stuff or whatever, or if it's in your starting hand, you can just play towards it. You can sort of pretend you're mana flooded. You can just complain like, man, I'll just draw. I wish I could draw a creature any day now and just not play anything and just wait till turn 5 and wrath everybody's stuff and then play out your stuff. Like, there's just a lot of ways to abuse it in multiplayer.
Exactly. It's a lot of fun, especially too if you're like in the position where you're gonna die and you need to just save yourself, or maybe you're like, crap, this guy's attacking with everything. Well, because everything's gonna die because I know I'm gonna route. I'm just gonna chump block with everything. Maybe. True. Save myself that damage and then just clear the board. True. Yeah, I'll give this a B plus.
I'm with you, B plus.
Okay, cool. Silverchase Fox. We've seen this guy before, right? Mm-hmm. He's a 1 and a white for a 2/2. All right, not bad. And for 1 and a white, you can sacrifice him to exile target enchantment. Not too many enchantments.
There's not too many big enchantments that are popping off. That are popping into my head as like, man, I really wish I could get rid of that.
He's nice for morbid effects if you're playing black-white.
True.
But the thing is, you have to be able to exile an enchantment to begin with, and again, you have 23 cards that you're putting in your deck. Most of them going to be creatures and instants and sorceries.
So he's basically a 2/2 for 2. Once in a while, you might want that effect. I don't know.
Yeah.
I give him a C-.
I give him a D.
Okay.
Yeah.
Next card is Soul Catcher. It's 2 mana, 1 and a white, for a flying bird soldier, 1/1. It says, whenever a creature with flying dies, put a 1/1 counter on Soul Catcher. This card is actually, I think it's sort of sneaky. There are a whole lot of flyers.
Very sneaky, especially if you're playing with those flyers.
Yeah, if they're your flyers, but even if they're not, because any flyer that dies is not just your flyers. It gets a 1/1, and I think it's pretty innocuous. Like, you put it out, nobody's going to worry about it, and then before you know it, it could be like a 4/4 or 5/5.
Yeah, with flying.
Yeah, that you put out early and just sort of sat there.
Yeah. And the nice thing is if you have a bunch of spirit tokens and you can just chump block with them because you're like, all right, what's
but they're just going to die sometimes.
Like exactly. Yeah, and those creatures get to give Soul Catcher some more fun. So it's fun. I like it just because it's a 2-for-1/1 flyer.
Yeah.
And it has the possibilities to get bigger, and it will get bigger.
You're right though. If you start chump blocking or just attacking with like 3 spirit tokens, even though they can block 1, all of a sudden you might have. If you get that thing 5/5 or bigger, there's just nothing to deal with it in the set besides removal.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna give it a C.
I'll give it a C+.
Nice.
I think it can be very helpful depending.
Okay.
All right. Next up, we got Stave Off, which is for 1 white. It's an instant. Target creature gains protection from the color of your choice until the end of turn. It's a combat trick.
It's a combat trick. Listen,
it's an anti-removal trick.
It is. It can save a creature. I guess if I had like a couple of big bombs, I might think about it.
Yeah.
This is like God's Willing in Theros, which was actually a good card in Theros, but there's no heroic mechanic in Conspiracy, so I just don't really like it unless I would have to have like 3 big bombs or something that I really want to protect.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah.
I just think there's better cards.
Yeah.
That are 1 in an instant, and the next one that we literally are going to talk about is that card.
Yeah, true. So what do you?
Yeah, I'd say I give it a D-.
Okay, I give it a D.
I'm just not a big fan of battle tricks.
Yeah.
I was at one point because I thought they seemed really cool, and then I started playing them and realized they.
In general, you want maybe 1, maybe 2.
Yeah.
No more.
Yeah, and there are.
And this is not a great one.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. There are a couple that I'll talk about that are the ones you want. So.
Okay, the next card is maybe the greatest removal spell ever printed.
Yeah, it's Path to Exile.
Yeah, and in some cases it's better than Path.
Yep.
It's called Swords to Plowshares. It's 1 white mana for an instant. It says exile target creature. Its controller gains life equal to its power.
At instant speed.
It's just awesome. It was awesome when Magic first was invented. It's still awesome to this day. It's
just 1 mana for an exile effect.
Yep.
Amazing.
It can save you in a lot of different ways. It can save you when a creature is attacking you and that creature is going to kill you. It can also save you if something's going to do damage to you.
Yeah.
You can exile your own creature to gain the life.
Yep.
So there's a little versatility there. This card is it's always been good. I give it a B+.
Yeah, I give this an A-. I can't see myself never not playing this. I'll first pick this out of a pack and just go white.
Yeah, I would first pick it. I would pick an A card over this though.
Right. Yeah. If Rayo was sitting in there, I'd take that.
Yeah.
If they were both in this pack, I'd hope I get that card.
I would hope I had the Cardwork Librarian.
Yeah. Exactly. All right. Next up is Unquestioned Authority. 2 and a white. Enchantment Aura. Enchant creature. When Unquestioned Authority enters the battlefield, draw a card. Enchanted creature has protection from creatures. Hey. Mini Teysa. I like this card.
Build your own Teysa.
Yeah, build your own Teysa. I like this card a lot because you get to draw a card when it comes into the battlefield, and your creature is just pretty strong. It makes it even stronger than it already is. I think protection from creatures is underrated.
Because it's unblockable and it can block anything.
Yeah, it can block anything.
And the draw card when it enters the battlefield makes it, usually the downside of auras is that you can get 2 for 1. When they kill that creature, you lose 2 cards. It can still happen to you, so be a little careful when you play this card. If you play it and while it's on the stack, they somehow destroy, like with Tragic Slip or Swords to Plowshares, the creature you have it aimed at, then it never enters the battlefield, and so you don't get to draw the card.
Yeah.
So be careful about playing it into a bunch of untapped mana by your opponent. But I think this card is stronger than it looks, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, especially because there are so many fun little bombs that you could put it on.
Yeah.
If you put this on Custodial Soulbinders, then it's awesome. You can just attack into anything. And
a lot of times, too, in multiplayer, like the boards get built up to the point where it's hard for anybody to really profitably attack without leaving themselves open to an alpha strike that'll kill them from the rest of the table.
Right.
And so a lot of times you wish, I just wish I had one creature that could just attack every turn, and this will give you that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it'll also give you a creature that can just block anything, which is also useful later in the game.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. What do you give it?
I'll give it a C plus.
I'm with you there. C plus.
Maybe a C.
Yeah, that's what I was waffling between C and C plus. It's somewhere in there.
I'd play it. It's not instant put into any deck. It just depends on what cards I got in there.
Okay, the next card is called Valor Made Real. It's 1 white for an instant. It says target creature can block any number of creatures this turn.
Man.
Boo. It's kind of like a White's Fog effect.
Yeah.
It might seem good, but it's just generally not. It's like going to save you for 1 combat step.
Yeah.
Then what's going to happen next combat step?
Yep.
You die.
It'd be nice, again, with, Rhea or Pristine Angel. Or, maybe...
But if you have those cards, then you don't need Valor Made Real. Those cards are good on their own.
Yeah, exactly. I'd give this a D.
Yeah, I give it D minus.
Yeah. All right, Vow of Duty, another enchantment aura. Enchant creature gets +2/+2, has vigilance, and can't attack you or a planeswalker you control. So same cost as Unquestioned Authority, and it's the same enchantment creature, except I think this is really interesting. It's great. It's like it's
well designed.
Very well designed for multiplayer, because it's like, hey, this guy's swinging at me with this big old fatty, and I don't want him to attack me anymore. But I can do this to him and have him start wrecking damage on other people with that same creature.
Yeah, in some ways, it's almost better than a removal spell, because instead of removing a threat, you create a threat that's a threat to other players and not yourself.
And someone else is going to have to deal with it with one of their own cards or whatever. And so it guaranteed that card that is attacking you is going to be such a bigger threat to everyone else now that they're going to want to get rid of it.
Yeah.
So they could waste their cards doing it.
You have to be a little careful, because it doesn't say it can't block you. So you can create like a really big creature, and they don't have to attack with it. Also, it gets vigilance. So you can create, like, if you put this on somebody's creature, you're probably not attacking them for a little while either.
Exactly.
So, but listen, if there's still 5 players at the table, it's pretty safe to put it on there.
Yeah. And, at the very end of the day, you can also use this on your own guy.
That's true, actually, yeah.
So it has upsides.
Yeah.
And I like it. I think it's a fun card. I would give it a C.
Yeah, I'm going to give it a C also. I have C plus written down, but auras scare me.
Yeah. I just rather...
You just can't have very many auras in your deck.
And always, in that case, if it's like you could choose between that and a Swords of Plowshares, I'll take a Swords of Plowshares.
It is a cool card, though.
Yeah.
I like that design. Tell your buddy Gavin.
Yeah. Thanks, man.
Okay, the next card is called Wakestone Gargoyle. It's 4 mana, 3 and a white, for a 3/4 defender with flying. Which, defender with flying is actually pretty good in this set. In a lot of sets that would suck, but in this set it's fine.
Yeah.
It also has additional text that says, for 1 and a white, creatures you control with defender can attack this turn as though they didn't have defender. So the Vent Sentinel deck wants this card bad. It wants as many of these as it can get.
Yeah, exactly.
It's also fine otherwise, because for 2 mana, it's a 3/4 flyer, and the games go long, and you just have extra mana lying around turn 8 or 9, and all of a sudden, like, your defender dude can attack.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'd very happily put this in my deck. That's why I would give it like a B- maybe, just because you will have that mana up eventually, and even if you don't have it in the beginning, then someone with flying is less likely just to attack you in general, because they'd rather go against someone else. So at least it mitigates the damage for it just being on the board. Even if you don't have the mana to tap it to attack, doesn't matter. Most times you're going to want to leave it up to block.
And multiplayer oftentimes works like this. Like, I build up, and I'm not really attacking anybody. And then when I want to, I start attacking.
Yeah.
And at that point, you have the mana to start attacking. So oftentimes you play a 3/3 flyer, and you play it as if it were like this wall. Like, you don't actually attack with it the first 4 or 5 turns.
It may as well have defender on.
Yeah, exactly. And then you can take defender off when you want. So yeah, I agree with you. B-.
Yeah, and it's not just itself too. It's any creature with defender. So if you draft this early, you can definitely, because I'll say this much, not many people are going to pick defender cards.
In general, like, people will underrate this card because it says defender. They won't see the rest of the text.
And multiplayer conspiracy is a format where you don't want to pop out as the strongest first, because you'll get taken down first. So
man, in the Vent Sentinel deck, if you get 2 of these things, like, this is
it's
bonkers.
Bonkers.
Really quick, what do you think of white overall?
Super strong. Lots of great flyers, lots of great options. It has the only wrath effect. It has also another removal in swords. It's just got a lot of really classic cards, a lot of nice reprints, and has the strongest flyers by far, with 2 angels. And I don't know, it's just so strong. It's so good.
Yeah, I think white is my favorite color in this set.
Yeah, by far. Okay. Yeah.
All right, so moving on to blue.
All right. First up, we got the Academy Elite, which is a 4-drop, 3 in the blue. Human Wizard, that's a 0/0, so it's going to get some counters. Academy Elite enters the battlefield with X +1/+1 counters on it, where X is the number of instant and sorcery cards in all graveyards. Ugh. And for 2 in the blue, you can remove a +1/+1 counter to draw a card, then discard a card. Just crappy.
This is an underwhelming card, yeah. After the white one, I was excited.
Yeah, right? And here's the thing. You're relying on something that just is you're not going to see very much of in Conspiracy.
Just in draft in general, people won't play a lot of instants and sorceries.
Yeah. Compared to how many creatures are on the battlefield, I mean, I'd say the biggest this guy is going to come in is like a 5/5 maybe.
Wah, wah, wah.
Wah, wah, wah. And for 2 in the blue to do to loot and remove a 1/1 counter, there's a better card that's
There's
cheaper.
a couple better cards that
do the
just
exact
do it
same
for
thing.
tapping them.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just going to straight up give this a D.
I'm going to give a C-. It still probably be like a 4/4 for 4.
Yeah.
So it's playable, and you might want to loot one. I don't know. I'll give it a C-. I think it's barely playable.
Yeah.
The next card is Aether Trade Winds. It's instant for 3 mana, 2 and a white. 2 and a blue. Return target permanent you control and target permanent you don't control to their owner's hands. We've talked about unsummoned type effects in multiplayer before. They're definitely generally not that great.
Yeah. And you have to return the target permanent that you control as well. So
you'd have to have some enter the battlefield stuff.
Yeah, or something that you want. Or let's say, like, I don't know, if you had the Academy Elite and you just want to get more utility out of it. I don't know. It's
true. Academy Elite, you at least add 1 counter because Aether Trade Winds will go to your graveyard. And
yeehaw.
Listen, this is okay. D+.
Yeah, D-. Just maybe D, I guess, because I could see it being useful occasionally. Air Servant, 4 in the blue. It's a 4/3 creature that has flying, and for 2 in the blue, you can tap target creature with flying. I think this is actually a pretty solid card.
This card is pretty awesome.
Yeah, it takes care of other flyers, and you can also do it for other players as well. It's got a lot of politicking involved.
Yep.
I think it's pretty strong. 4/3 for 5 is all
I think
right.
this thing can win games. Like, a lot of times, they're going to only have 1 or 2 flying blockers. You tap them both down, Alpha Strike with 2 or 3 of your flyers. I mean, you're already in blue. Yeah, I give it a B+.
Yeah, I'd give it a B+ too.
Okay. Next card is Brainstorm Classic.
Yeah,
it's
new art.
Yeah, new. It's instant for 1 blue. It says, draw 3 cards, then put 2 cards from your hand on top of your library in any order. So 2 things to note is that the cards don't have to be any of the cards that you drew. So you can, place cards there that you already had in your hand and keep all 3 of the cards that you drew.
Yeah.
The other thing is this can work really good, like you said earlier, with Parlay. Because you can place a card that's a non-land card knowing you're going to play your parlay card, so you can activate it 1 additional time than maybe you would. So it's card selection. It's not card draw because you're using a card to draw a card, but it's cheap for the selection. It's a solid card. In Limited, I think it's less powerful than it is in
Definitely less
Constructed.
powerful in Limited. With Parlay, it gives a little more oomph because you can, again, fix that card on the top of your library. But for the most part, it's a great card to have in general for just Magic.
Yeah,
for EDH.
yeah. You want to own copies of Brainstorm if you don't already.
Yeah. So I mean, there's a reason that it's like $1 common. It's like one of the most expensive commons, I think.
Yeah.
Maybe not $1 anymore, but who knows?
It'll probably go back up after Conspiracy's out of rotation too. So
yeah.
I give it a solid C.
Yeah, I'll give it a C.
Okay.
Maybe a C+. But it's limited, so I'll give it a C.
Okay.
All right, Breakthrough. It's X and a blue. And draw 4 cards as a sorcery. You can draw 4 cards and then choose X cards in your hand and discard the rest. Hey, this is awesome.
Yeah, this is pretty good because later on in the game when you have no cards in hand or you draw this off the top.
1 blue for 4?
Well, you need to tap, if you want to keep any of them, you have to tap at least 5 or at least 2. Then you can take just 1.
Yeah, exactly.
So the way it works is if you tap 3 mana, a blue and 2, then you're going to draw 4 cards and keep 2 of them.
Yep.
If you do all 5 mana, blue and 5 and 4, you're gonna keep all 4 of them. So
yeah, and I'd say a mana for a card is usually a pretty good deal.
Really good card. But if you're already holding 3, now it's tough to cast this because in order to keep all 7 cards, you'd have to tap blue and 7.
Right.
So you really want to cast it when your hand's empty, or maybe if you've got 1 card in it.
Yeah. This is nice though because in parity it's really strong. It helps you win more for sure. It helps you lose a little less because you get answers. And early game is the only time I wouldn't want this card. In my hand,
multiplayer games, like we always say, they go long, so there's a good chance you're going to be at a point where your hand is almost empty or totally empty, and so then you fire off this card.
Yeah.
So I give it a C.
Yeah, I'll give it a C too, maybe a C plus.
Okay.
Just because I know how long these games can go, and not
true.
having cards at the end, and someone that does, you're not gonna win that game if you don't have cards.
The next card is Compulsive Research. It's 2 and a blue for a sorcery. It says target player draws 3 cards. Then that player discards 2 cards unless he or she discards a land. It's kind of like a divination that asks a little bit more of you. You basically want to cast it when you already have a land in hand and you've got plenty of lands on the battlefield.
Yeah, so it's another sort of mid to late game cast. So you don't want to discard 2 cards otherwise.
I mean, in a real pinch, you could just cast it off. Either hope you draw a land or just hope you get something better than what's in your hand already.
Yeah. I mean, I think you have a pretty good chance of drawing a land if you do.
That's true. 3 cards and almost like 1 and 2 cards will be a land. So. Yeah, I think it's okay. There's not a ton of ways to abuse it. You know, if you had some things that want things in your graveyard,
right,
or look for things in your graveyard, this becomes a little bit better. There are cards like that in black, in green. White even has the Custody Squire, so it gets more valuable with those other cards if you've already drafted them. Yeah. I'm gonna give it a C minus.
I'd give this a C. I think it has more upside because it's good later game, and you can just discard the land card and then you get 3 cards. That's not bad. That's not bad at all.
Yeah, true.
Next up, we got Crook Claw Transmuter. I love this guy. 3 in the blue. He's a flash, flying 3/1. And when he enters the battlefield, you can switch target creature's power and toughness until end of turn.
This is one we talked about earlier.
Yeah, so you can use this guy to just straight up nuke someone that has a 0/3, or you can use this to flash in a Great Defender, and you can have him change himself to a 1/3.
Mm-hmm. Or just as a combat trick, like they're attacking with a 4/2, and you've got a 2/3, and all of a sudden you just flash this guy in and you can block it for for free.
Yeah, and it's a great way to surprise kill one of their guys.
Yep.
And it's great too because you get a creature out of it and you cast it in instant speed. So
also it's just a 4-mana 3-power flyer.
Yeah.
Like it's gonna kill it'll trade with almost every other flyer in the game besides the rares.
Yeah. Precisely.
Or something that was kicked a lot.
Yeah, and if you're and you're in a parity situation, or if you're winning, this is obviously a nice card to have. Even though if you're on the defense too, this is the kind of card that can switch the total dynamic up. You could be on the beatdown after casting this guy because you use it to trick out and kill one of their guys, and then now you're the one with the power in the air.
It's also a common, so it works really well with the conspiracy cards.
Yeah.
If you get multiples of this and some of the conspiracies, it can be pretty bonkers.
Yeah, exactly.
I give it a B minus.
Yeah, I'll give it a B minus too.
Okay.
It being a flyer obviously gives it more points, and the flash is always nice.
It has a relevant ability.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And you can flicker him as well. You can use this to kill multiple things if you want him to enter the battlefield. So he's got some upside there.
Okay, the next card is Dream Fracture. It's an instant for blue, and a colorless. It says counter target spell. Its controller draws a card. Draw a card. So you counter spell, and then you draw a card, and the person who you counter draws a card. Yeah, I'm not super...
I hate having my opponents draw cards.
Yeah, that is not... I mean, I'm trying to figure out the situation where this is good. If you're going to win or something, and then you can stop whatever they're doing to stop you, that's okay. Otherwise, them drawing a card is... you're replacing the card you countered.
Yeah.
I guess... here's what happens sometimes, though. In a draft, somebody's, like, bragging about the cards they got, and so for certain, like, somebody's got Marchesa or somebody's got, one of those big bombs, and you just don't have any real answers for it in your deck, in which case I may put this in, because if they're cast Marchesa and you counter it, you don't care if they drew a card. You got rid of the biggest bomb in their deck.
Yeah, Rhea, countering Rhea would be amazing.
Yeah, exactly. So in that situation, I would think about putting Dream Fracture in. Under normal circumstances, when I don't even know if those cards, those big bombing cards, even exist in the game.
Yeah. And here's the thing: there aren't any other counters, I don't think, for blue.
Yeah, there might be 1 or 2 more, but
so if you are looking to play that control game, then this is useful. You also get to draw a card, so it's not the worst. But I just in general don't like it when you let other people draw cards.
Yeah, I'm gonna say D+.
Yeah, I'll give it a D.
Okay.
Enclave Elite. It's a Merfolk Soldier, 2 in the blue for a 2/2 with a multi-kicker of 1 in the blue. It's got Island Walk, and if it enters the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter on it for each time it was kicked. So this is sort of like our other kickers, except this guy's not flying. But they do have Island Walk. Yeah, and I think blue is a pretty powerful color. in general, I think you'll almost always have at least a couple of people playing blue.
I think this card it's playable because kicker cards are pretty good, just because of their versatility. If you draw them late in the game and you have a lot of extra mana,
yeah, totally.
It's not exciting. It could be something. I still think it's not great. I'm gonna give it a C-.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it a D+. I just rather put a flyer again. Island
sure.
Walk is nice, but if you have to combo it with something else to make it really work, I'd rather just be flying in the air.
True. The next card is a well-known card called Fact or Fiction.
Classic.
It's 3 and a blue for an instant. It says, reveal the top 5 cards of your library. An opponent separates those cards into 2 piles. Put one pile into your hand and the other into your graveyard. This is actually a little bit stronger in multiplayer, I believe, because of the ability to make allies, and you are allowed to choose which opponent separates the things. So if you can find somebody that's a little more friendly towards you, you can sort of make a deal.
Yeah.
Just depending on where you're at in the game. It's not a lot more powerful because in general, you're not going to have an opponent that's really willing to help you out too much.
Yeah, exactly. And that guy's everyone's gonna hate him or her too.
You can also do something. I mean, let's be honest. In every play group, there's one player that's not as good. Somebody's got to be the worst player at the table. And so you can sort of choose the guy that sort of strategically isn't going to know what to do. But
I can guarantee you, though, everyone's going to look at what he chose and
they're going to tell him. They're going to be like, no, don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. So, but I'm just saying, you can try that sort of trick. Anyway, I think this is a pretty strong card. It's almost always strong. It's card draw, which is always powerful.
Yeah.
And you're going to be able to find a time to fire this off because multiplayer just has a lot of turns where nobody's attacking or blocking. So I'm going to give this a C+.
Yeah, I'll give it a C+ too. I mean, sometimes the cards that they'll do the perfect split, but either way, you still get upside.
You're always getting 2 cards at least.
Yeah, or you could even get 4. If someone goes 4 and 1 and puts your Rhea at the bottom. So
I might take the Rhea.
Yeah, because here's the thing: your strongest card is going to be in the pile that you can choose, no matter what. So that's always a nice thing. Favorable wins. It's 2, 1 in the blue for an enchantment. Creatures you control with flying get +1/+1. Token bomb.
Yeah, and not even if you don't have tokens, even if you got Apex Hawks and Crook Claw transmuters.
Yeah, this card is great.
The flyers are already powerful, and all the tokens, the 1/1 spirit tokens.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah,
I'd give this a B-, maybe even a B.
You have to be in the flyers deck.
Yeah,
and then it's a B-. Yeah.
Yeah, I would never draft this if I didn't have the deck to support
If you have Rousing the Spirits, let's say you've got. If I have 2 or 3 Rousing the Spirits, this card is bomb status almost now.
Yeah, especially because it's just 2. You put it out, and then you just swing for a lethal. You
can do that. You got 6 spirit tokens, and all of a sudden you put a favorable winds out, and now you just added 6 power toughness in the air. It's brutal.
Yeah.
All right, the next card is called Grixis Illusionist. It's a blue mana for a 1/1 human wizard. It says tap it. Target land you control becomes the basic land of your choice until end of turn. So this is just fixing for yourself. Weird. In blue,
not at haste speed. You have to wait a turn to use it. I just don't like it.
You'd have to be pretty desperate for fixing.
Very desperate.
I think I played one of these once when I was doing my four color thing, and I just felt like I needed one more fixer.
Yeah.
And
did it help?
It was fine.
Yeah.
I mean, it's multiplayer, so you can play a couple of crappy cards and you can sort of hide enough that it doesn't hurt you as much as it maybe would. But it was not awesome. I wasn't real happy about it. But, I didn't get another fixer, didn't come around to me. So, I guess it's not like a Birds of Paradise because it actually turns one of your land. It doesn't create an additional land. Yeah. It's not ramp.
I'd give this an F. I'm
going to give it a D+ because I actually played it once. I didn't want to. But I did, and I think that there might be instances where you would play it.
I mean, maybe if you're splashing and you don't want to, you really need the extra mana because you got some cards that have to get kicked, and you can't spend that extra mana on something else, then he can be a little useful.
We've also all been in that draft where it just sort of goes off the rails. You were in 2 colors, they sort of got cut off, you chose another one, you thought was open, all of a sudden it wasn't, and before you know it, you just got this pile of cards, and they don't make sense together. They're all different colors, and it's you're just trying to salvage whatever you can, and just in that deck, just the ability to play cards is what you need, and so in that case, it can fix you. It's pretty crappy. I'm not going to... Yeah, I'll give D+ is what I said. Okay.
Right. Jetting Glass Kite. 4 and 2 blue, so 6 total for a 4/4 flying. And its ability is whenever Jetting Glass Kite becomes the target of a spell or ability for the first time in the turn, counter that spell or ability. Very, very powerful. As far as I'm concerned, he essentially is hexproof flying.
Yeah, it's true because you have to target him twice in the same turn.
Yeah, and
to kill him.
No one is going to want to waste a spell on him just so that someone else might be able to target it and get rid of it.
I mean, they might have to team up and do it because a 4/4 flyer is pretty powerful in the set.
Yeah, but at the same time, I think too often people are just too obsessed with the cards in their own hand, and they're not going to want to spend it on yours, especially if it's going to be an auto counter. It's like Kira Great Glass.
Yeah,
Spinner.
true.
It's like it gives you so much protection across the board. They would rather spend it on something else.
Yeah, I totally agree. Because you never want to cast a spell and it doesn't do anything. That's no fun.
Yeah, that's not fun. You waste mana, you're down a card, and especially if it's like, hey, and now you cast something so that we can kill it. It's like, well, no guarantees there either.
Yeah.
So, I love this card. I think it's great. 6 for a 4/4 hexproof flying.
I think
that's how I see it.
And 4/4 flyer is really strong in this set. What do you give it?
I'm gonna give it a B.
Yeah, I agree. I'm gonna give it a B also.
Yeah.
Maybe a B plus.
Maybe B plus. Yeah.
No, I'm gonna give it a B.
Okay.
Okay, next is Marchesa's Emissary. It's 4 mana, 3 and a blue for a 2/2 human rogue. It has hexproof, and it has Dethrone. Let's talk about Dethrone. Is this our first Dethrone?
This is our first Dethrone card.
I should read Dethrone then.
Yeah.
Dethrone reads, whenever this creature attacks the player with the most life or tied for the most life, put a 1/1 counter on it. So Dethrone wants you to attack the player with the most life and your creatures grow. Yeah. The problem you can run into is if you're the player with the most life, you're not allowed to attack yourself. So then Dethrone's just sort of turned off in that instance.
And if you are dethroning everyone, you eventually will sit atop the throne.
Yeah. But then they'll all want to kill you because you've hit all of them.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't like the dethrone mechanic in general. I mean, it's cool. I like the design. I don't like actually playing dethrone cards myself because, as we've stated before, I don't like cards that force me into acting a certain way. Like, I want to make strategic decisions the way I think I should make them, and I don't want the card to be dictating that to me.
So yeah, you want to read this card because of that as just a 3 in the blue for a hexproof 2/2. Because worst situation, you always want to say, what is this going to be like when I draw it late and I'm the person with the most life? Or at its worst, this is a 4 mana hexproof 2/2,
which is pretty bad.
Yeah, it's just pretty bad. It's not flying. It doesn't have anything else going for it. I would definitely put this a lower grade. I give this like a C-. I'm
gonna give it a D. Yeah. I don't think I play it.
Yeah, I mean I like Dethrone, so I'm gonna automatically give it a little more love just because of it. But I agree. Yeah, it's just not that.
I mean, we've definitely seen those games where somebody gets a couple of Dethrone guys out and they're able to use it, and all of a sudden like they get 3 or 4 counters on those guys, and they're off to a really good start.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, it's just there's a lot of games where they draw those Dethrone guys later and they're never able to get them going, and then they're just worthless.
Precisely. All right, next up we got Marchesa's Infiltrator. It's a 2 in the blue for a 1/1. Again with Dethrone, but the other ability on this human rogue is whenever Marchesa's Infiltrator deals combat damage to a player, draw a card.
Scroll Thief ability.
Yeah, all right. And
here's a Dethrone guy I can get behind.
Yeah, right, because he doesn't necessarily need to attack someone to get the more important ability here, which is drawing a card.
I mean, you don't even care about the dethrone counter. I'm only looking at I just want him to connect with someone and I draw a card.
Yeah.
Like if I connect with the person with the least life, I don't care because I just want the card.
Yep. And the nice thing is that you can use this in multiplayer probably pretty often. You're going to find there's almost always going to be someone that you can attack in the early game, I think.
Yeah, and if you get 1 or 2 of these, you can put a couple of effects in that help you make something like basically unblockable or whatever, it can be pretty powerful, and drawing cards is super powerful in multiplayer.
Yeah, so I give this a C.
I give it a C also.
Yeah,
in bigger pods this is going to be better. Like if you're playing with like 5 people, it's going to be better just because there's going to be more of a chance if there's a player with nothing that can block it.
Right.
Okay, the next card is Minamo Scroll Keeper. It's 2 mana, 1 in a blue for a 2/3 human wizard with defender. It says your maximum hand size is increased by 1.
Inconsequential and limited. You're never gonna have such a huge hand, or I'll never say never, but you're very rarely gonna have such a huge hand that this makes a big difference.
Who cares about this card? I'm done talking about D+.
Yeah, F. Unless you can conspiracy it up, but that's just a different story. Misdirection. Here we go. Another classic card getting reprinted. Many people are happy about this one. For 3 and 2 blue, so 5 total. It's an instant. You may exile a blue card from your hand instead of paying Misdirection's mana cost, and it changes the target of a target spell with a single target.
So you basically grab their spell and point it at somebody else?
Point it at someone else, yeah. Against Swords of Plowshares, it's great. Against Tragic Slip, it's amazing. And the fact that you can just exile a card from your hand and play it means you can essentially play it for a 0, for just a single card.
When you have no mana out, you can save your bomb or whatever.
When you accidentally put the Minimal Scroll Keeper in your deck and you're like, what is this doing here? I'm going to misdirect it.
I'm going to use it only for Mr. It's the only ways.
Yeah, exactly.
It's the only reason the Scroll Keeper is good in your deck.
Yeah, this is a great card. I'd say it's even better in EDH and bigger formats where you have a lot more card draw and stuff. It's fun. It's not as good as the other instant in this set that's been pre-printed for blue, called Stifle.
Yeah, but I think it's more usable in limited though.
Yeah,
Stifle is just hard to use in limited. We'll get to that in a minute, but yeah, I think Misdirection is fine. It's hard in big multiplayer games because it's in those games. It's only targets a single target spell.
Yeah.
So it's inherent card disadvantage to the table. It's card parity to one player and card disadvantage to everybody else.
Yeah.
But having said that, if you do have a couple bombs, like if you have Marchesa, if you have, Pristine Angel or whatever, if you have some of the big bombs, then this becomes more valuable to you because you want to be able to protect them. And to be able to protect them for 0 mana is powerful too. Also, if you have a lot more card draw, which blue does, then you don't care as much about card disadvantage.
Yeah, exactly.
What do you give it?
I'll give it a C.
I give it a C. Oh, I was going to say as well, but you just changed. So I give it a C.
Yeah.
Okay, next card, Muzio, Visionary Architect.
EDH.
Yes, this is a 3 mana that's 1 and 2 blue for a legendary creature, Human Artificer, a 1/3. And the text is, you pay 3 and a blue and tap Muzio. You look at the top X cards of your library, where X is the highest converted mana cost among artifacts you control. You may reveal an artifact card from among them and put it into the battlefield. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. So if you have a 6 mana costed artifact out, you get to reveal the top 6 cards, and then you can put one of the artifacts onto the battlefield.
Yeah.
And the rest. This is a EDH card for sure.
Definitely an EDH card to build. You can also build a deck in Conspiracy around this, though. Because
there's not a lot of great artifacts. Some of the Cogwork stuff, I guess.
Yeah, you got mostly of the Cogwork cards and maybe the Lurking Automatons if you got those going too. The cool thing about him is that the way he's built, you can play him on turn 3 for 3, and you're not able to tap him until turn 4. Well, you will have 4 to be able to tap him.
True, but you have to have an artifact out to even tap him.
Right.
And your artifact would have to cost 2 or less because you played Muzio on 2.
Yeah.
Or on 3, and then tapped him on 4.
I
just don't think this is ever going to happen.
Yeah, I think he's a great card for Commander if you want to build a card deck around him. Otherwise, I'm going to give him a D+.
Yeah, rare draft him so that you can use him in EDH, but don't actually even play him in your deck. I'm going to give him I'm going to give him a D.
Yeah. All right, Plated Sea Strider is just a 2-drop for 2 blue. It's a 1/4.
D. All right, Plea for Power. It is a sorcery for 3 and a blue. It's a Will of the Council, which is a vote card. It says, starting with you, each player votes for time or knowledge. If time gets more votes, you get an extra turn after this one. If knowledge gets more votes, or the vote is tied, you draw 3 cards.
I like it. There's no downside for you to play this card. I really like the art, and I think the flavor for this is great. I think it really fits what it's trying to get at.
Yep.
The thing is, taking an extra turn in limited, I don't think is as strong in multiplayer sometimes, especially if it's
in EDH. A lot of times, one more turn is like the killing turn. Like, hey, if I just have one more turn, I'll kill everyone. In limited, like if I just have one more turn, I'll attack for 6 more.
Yeah, I'll put another creature on the battlefield, or hey, this guy can attack now or use their ability. It's okay. But getting 3 cards, which I think is often going to happen more. Yeah, that's the best side. And I think people will put too much emphasis on having an extra turn, and so eventually you're drawing 3 cards for 4 mana. And I think that's actually great. Yeah. So I think that's going to happen more often than not.
And I'm fine with that.
Yeah, and I'm fine with an extra turn too. Why not? You get 1 more card, you get to play another land. You get to get a step ahead of everyone else. So I'll take that any day of the week.
There's no downside to the card,
Yeah, there's not much downside to the card. So Plea for Power is I'm all about it. I'll give it a B.
I'm gonna give it a B also.
Nice.
Okay, next card is Reckless Scholar. It's 3 mana, 2 and a blue for a 2/1 human wizard. But it's a looter. It says tap it, target player draws a card, then discards a card. It's actually a variant on looter in that you can actually have somebody else do this.
Yeah, and this is much better than the whatever the first guys were called, the Academy Elites.
Oh yeah, this is better than the Academy Elite for sure. Yeah, because you don't have to use mana to do it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and you can you can do it,
and it doesn't make them smaller every time you do it.
Right, you can do it at instant speed before the end step, or even before your draw step. You can do it during your upkeep.
This card is actually good in a multiplayer format. Games are going to go longer, so the looting effect can eventually just turn into straight up card draw because you just hold your lands and then you discard them to draw more cards.
Yeah.
Also, this can work really well with some of the dredge type graveyard recursion type stuff that black and white and green have.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden you want cards in your graveyard.
Yeah.
If you got a couple of these guys. It can do some stuff. Look for those synergies, and this guy's actually probably better than you think.
Yeah, definitely. I'll give him a C.
I'm gonna give him a C also.
Okay, cool. Next up, we got Screaming Seahawk, which is an awesome card, and it's a few other. I think only one other card actually does this in the set. It's a 4 in the blue for a 2/2 with flying. Now, at first, this looks
doesn't sound
terrible.
great. Yeah,
5 for a 2/2 flyer. Ugh, get out of here. But when Screaming Seahawk enters the battlefield, you may search your library for a card named Screaming Seahawk, reveal it, and put it into your hand. If you do, shuffle your library. So it's a 2 for 1. You can search for itself.
Yep.
Which is really cool.
And if you play that other one and you have a third one,
yeah, you can grab another. You can
it can create this chain where you get all of a sudden one guy allows you to go get 3 cards.
Yeah, exactly. And that's when we were saying you could have like a 43 card deck, 44 card deck, is because of cards like Screaming Seahawk, where it's a guaranteed pretty much that you're going to be able to search out the other cards and put it in your hand and shuffle your library.
And with conspiracy effects, you can make this card cheaper. You can make it have an additional counter when it comes to play. You can give it haste. And as we said, in multiplayer games, casting cost is not quite as important.
Yeah.
All in all, this card has actually way overperformed for me every time I've played it.
Yeah, I think it's great. It's especially in all situations, you just get another card. You get another flyer.
Yeah.
And that's never a bad thing. So I would give this a C.
I give it a C also.
Yeah.
All right, next card is Shoreline Ranger. It is 5 in a blue for a 3/4 flying bird soldier. It also has Island Cycling 2, which means you pay 2, discard it, go find an island, put it into your hand. This card actually, again, the mana cost like 6 mana for a 3/4 flyer just doesn't seem great, but 3/4 flyer is really strong in the set, and 6 mana, like, it's not that much of a downside.
Not that much, yeah. 6, 3, 4. And the nice thing is island cycling again.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have to play it, but if you find yourself in need of doing so, you just freaking cycle that stuff away.
Yep.
All right, split this. Oh wait, grades. Of course, I can't move on.
Oh yeah. Go ahead.
I'll give this C minus.
I give it a C.
Yeah, I think it's a little expensive, but island cycling is nice.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever cut one.
Right. I don't think I would either if I had to look at my creatures and that was there as opposed to like a 1/1 or a 2/2 something else. I would take a flyer any day. All right, Split Decision. It's an instant with Will of the Council. It costs 1 in the blue. Choose target instant or sorcery spell. Starting with you, each player votes for denial or duplication. If denial gets more votes, counter the spell. If duplication gets more votes or the vote is tied, copy the spell. You may choose new targets for the copy. That's a lot of fun. Again, it's only upside, really.
I don't like this card.
Oh, really?
Go ahead. We're gonna have differing opinions, I think.
Yeah. So I've had this card used against me, and I had it with a card that gave everything -1/-1, all my opponent's creatures, and that was to clear the board of tokens and stuff. And then to my left of me, D cast Split Decision, and it was duplicated. And because it was duplicated, it meant that everything that I owned that was the same thing also died. And it just ended up creating a really good board state for him and bad for pretty much everyone else.
Because of how the stack worked.
Yeah, how the stack worked. Yeah, and how it resolved. And I think it's 2 for also potentially a counter. And I think if you're good at politicking, you can one of these is going to happen, right? And duplication is nice. Especially for something that can wipe the board like route or something, but denial is obviously I think going to be taken more often than not because no one wants you to have that extra card. So I think it's good because it's a 2 mana counter and there aren't many that happen.
Yeah, I wish it wasn't. It's very unpredictable, because it's just guessing whether. I mean, as a counter spell, it's really going to work good against wrath effects or something that like most people at the table don't want to happen. But if it's something that's just bad for you, it's super unpredictable whether or not anyone's going to vote with you or against you.
Right.
And copying some effects is not going to help you that much.
Yeah. Certain spells you copying would be the worst.
Yeah, exactly.
Just do anything.
Yeah, exactly. And those 2 effects are very different. Like countering a spell and copying the spell. Like I said, there's going to be you mostly want to play these, I think, where there's no downside for you. But I think there is some downside with split decisions sometimes where it's like, I want to counter this spell. I don't care. I don't want to copy it, or I want to copy that spell. I don't want to counter it, So I don't know. I don't like it. What do you give it?
I'm going to give it a C.
Oh, we're not that far apart. I give it a D+.
Yeah, okay. I can see that.
All right, next card is Stasis Cell. It's an enchantment aura for 4 and a blue. It says enchant creature. Enchanted creature doesn't untap during its controller's untap step. It also has an activated ability for 3 and a blue. Attach Stasis Cell to target creature, so you can move it around for 4 mana.
Yeah.
This is, it's clunky removal, but it's removal for blue, which doesn't get anything but clunky removal in this set.
Right.
And there are some uses in this in multiplayer because you can put it on somebody's creature, and then when it's their turn after their untap step and the thing hasn't untapped, you can move it on to the next player's.
Yeah, exactly.
And then their thing won't untap. You have to have a lot of mana to do it, but it's possible to do it.
Yeah.
You can also do some group hug stuff with it because of your ability to move it around. Also, if they try and sacrifice the creature that has Stasis Cell on it, you can move it onto another creature so it doesn't just leave the board. You have to have a lot of mana up to keep doing this, but it does have these uses.
Yeah.
It's still clunky, but I think it's fringe playable.
Yeah, if you're playing control, I think it's fun. There's a lot of politicking here too, and like you said, it's best when you can switch it on to something else after one thing's stayed tapped. And it's great to shut down their fattest guy, because you could tap down, for instance, Madam Pristine Angel.
True. Yeah.
Leave her open right there.
Yep. They'd have to. Well, she'd have to be tapped. They'd have to not play a spell, otherwise she's got protection from everything.
That's true.
Yeah, but you can tap down a lot of stuff.
Yeah. You never know.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it a.
There are cards that, again, there's a blue card that taps a creature with flying.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it a C-. I think it'll often be somewhere around your 23rd card. It might fall on the outside or barely on the inside.
I've had it used against me twice now to be annoying enough to give it a C- as well.
All
Otherwise, this would be a straight D in my book. Next up is Stifle. All right, another reprint. All right, everyone that wants to play the deck in Legacy that uses this that costs $2,000 now it costs $1,900 for the Stifle. Congratulations. It is for 1 blue. It's an instant counter target activated or triggered ability. It's an EDH card for me. It's very specifically.
I think it's a legacy card. Even in EDH, I think
card.
it's iffy.
Yeah, it's fun. I don't think it's the strongest thing in this set specifically because there aren't too many activated or triggered abilities that are really going to shut you down that you really need to stop.
That you need a whole card. Also, it doesn't kill the creature that did the thing.
Precisely.
There's only one Planeswalker. And it's mythic, so most 95% of the time that Planeswalker won't even be in the game.
Yeah.
This is not a card for a multiplayer. I think you can rare draft it, obviously, just so you can have it, but I wouldn't put it in your deck. I give it a D-.
I give it a D, maybe D+, just because I like the art.
It's the art bonus.
Yeah, art bonus definitely happens.
All right, next is Traveler's Cloak. It's enchantment aura for 2 and a blue. It says enchant creature. As Traveler's Cloak enters the battlefield, choose a land type. When Traveler's Cloak enters the battlefield, draw a card. Enchanted creature has landwalk of the chosen type.
I think this card's great.
Yeah, this card has actually surprised me. When I first was drafting, I just overlooked it, and then a couple times somebody played it. And, you forget how powerful
landwalk is.
Just unblockable effects later on in the game are. Because, like I said, a lot of times the board's just at parity. Nobody can really attack because they'll get killed by the other players on the crackback.
Yeah.
And it's easy for that to be a situation because 3 other players attacking you is going to kill you later in the game.
Yeah.
And, if you can just have one creature that can sort of peck away, even if it's only 4 or 5 damage.
Oh, yeah.
But if
incredibly
you can usually safely attack with one creature, except they would have blocked it and kill it. But if you can, but you don't need it for defense.
Yep.
Just one creature.
Or even if it's vigilant,
Yeah,
and also because you can choose the land walk, there might be 4 players with black.
Yep.
And boom, you've got someone that's can walk over everyone.
Yep.
One gripe I have with this card though is I really wish they reordered the text so that it starts off with Traveler's Cloak enters the battlefield, draw a card.
Yeah,
and
it's
then
really.
when there's a battlefield, choose a land type, because right now it's just you skip a whole line to figure out what you're doing when you choose the land type.
I wonder the reasoning between that wording, just to make it more confusing for new players.
Yeah, maybe. Who knows? But anyway, for 3 mana, I like it. I'm gonna give it a C. C plus maybe.
I'm gonna give it a C minus, only because I think you can only have a certain amount of equipment and aura type stuff in your deck, and so it's just like it's one of them and it's playable, but it's not like so amazing that I.
Yeah. Next up, we got Turn the Tide, which is 1 in the blue. Instant creatures your opponent's control get -2, -0 until end of turn. Combat trick.
Boo,
don't like it. F.
It's the blue fog. It's worse than fog, and fog's an F.
Yeah. If it gave -2, -2, boom, right?
Yeah, because it can kill stuff.
Yeah, but it can't even do that. It can just save you. And here's the thing: if they're attacking with like 3/3 flyers, then you're just still taking damage at the end of the day. Come on, I mean it's
F minus.
X.
All right, and the last blue card is Wind Dancer. It is a flying 1/1 for 1 in a blue, and it has a tap ability. You tap it, and target creature gains flying until end of turn.
That's cool.
Yeah, I actually think this is pretty good because the flyers are such a thing in this set.
You can use it on defense and on offense.
If you're blue-green, you can all of a sudden make like a 7/7 flying, like, you know, monster of destruction that nobody can deal with. You know, or you have a Lurking Automaton that's a 5-mana 6/6. All of a sudden, it's a 5-mana 6/6 flyer.
Yeah, you just thrust that thing into the air. No way. Craziness.
Yeah, I like this card. It's not amazing by itself because you do need another card to make it good, but it's totally playable. I'm going to give it a C.
I think it's a great backup card. I'd give it a C+.
Okay, awesome.
How do you what do you think about blue?
I actually think blue's the second best color. It just has a lot to do with the flyers.
Yeah. I would argue that blue is probably the third best color after black.
Oh, okay.
Because I think black has the instants and sorceries that really make a big difference.
Black does have, well, we'll go through it here, but okay. I think I have black as my third best color, so I think we're agreed, sort of.
Yeah. Well, I mean, here's the thing. Blue's got flyers, and that's always going to put you ahead in limited.
Yeah, the flyers deck is pretty strong, and blue has a lot of card draw, and I love card draw in multiplayer.
Yeah.
It's a strong color. It doesn't have quite as many bombs. White has awesome stuff and the best bombs.
It's pretty insane.
Yeah.
All right, so that's it for this first half of the conspiracy format. We're going to talk about the rest of the cards on next week's episode, so make sure you stay tuned. And also, if you guys are watching this show right now, there is an option to listen to it. And if you're listening to this show, there's an option to watch it.
Funny how that works.
Yeah, right? You can download the podcast and subscribe. There is an RSS feed for all that stuff. So just check out the links. It's all going to be in the show notes.
It's really cool because you can actually see the cards as we talk about them.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, until next time.
Conspiracy out.
Thank you for your attention. For further inquiries, send an email to commandcast@rocketjump.com or ask us on Twitter @JFWong and @JoshLeeKwai. See you later, alligator.
Greetings, humans.